Honorable members, the prayer. Lord, the God of righteousness and truth, grant to our King, to his government, to members of the Legislative Assembly, and to all in positions of responsibility, the guidance of your Spirit. May they never lead the province wrongly through love of power, desire to please, or unworthy ideas, but laying aside all private interest and prejudice, keep in mind their responsibility to seek to improve the condition of all. Amen. Honorable members will now be led in the singing of God Save the King by Karina Pasarica and her mother, Gisela Labyrinths. I invite you to participate in the language of your choice.
God save our gracious King, long live our noble King. God save the King, center victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us. God save the King.
Honorable members, please be seated.
Introduction of visitors.
Order.
Introduction of guests.
Honorable members, I have two very special guests seated in the speakers gallery today. One of them is an absolute delight. She is 6 years old. She's 6 years old. She is basically a Disney princess, loves all of them, even named after one of them. Bella Jean, the daughter of the Minister of Energy and Minerals, and his beautiful bride, Kimberly Jean. Please rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly. Also in the Speakers Gallery today, we were led in the singing of God Save the King, performed by Karina Pasarica and her mother, Giselle Labyrinth, who were both seated in the gallery. They're also joined by Karina's father, Ruben. Karina's been singing with her mother began singing at the age of 3. Karina's love for music has flourished thanks to the musical influence of her parents. Karina's mother, Gisela, not only sings but also plays the violin, harp, and piano. Together as a family, they've performed in nursing homes, long-term care facilities, and church functions over the past 40 years. Please rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly. The Honourable Member for Calgary-Buffalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce disability and home care advocates Aaron Nowakowski, Jared Verkamen, Daniel Ennett, and Emily Tatowski. Please stand up and receive the warm welcome of the Legislature.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to introduce to you and through you Carly Drew and her parents, Susan DeRoche and Michael DeRoche, Vanny Lane, Dasignan Marchand, personal care worker, and Scott Kelford. Please welcome them all.
Yeah.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Riverview.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd also like to introduce some advocates for the disability community. Chris Galloway, Mitchell Pollock, Alyssa Preddy, all from Friends of Medicare, Karen Capri from United Nurses of Alberta, and Sandro Azakar from the Alberta Union of Provincial Employees. Please stand to receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
The Honourable Minister of Mental Health and Addiction.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm happy to rise to introduce through you and to you guests who joined us from the United States for a provincial prayer breakfast this morning. Kelly Sandras, Miriam Sullivan, Chris Sipman, Chris Hayes, and later joined in the gallery today before the end of question period by Wes Anderson, Carol Lovejoy, Diego Del Olmo, and Grant Christine Gustafson. Please rise and receive the warm welcome of this House.
The Member for Cypress Medicine Act.
Thank you, Mr.
Speaker, I'd like to introduce to you and through you Hans Hershen and Sandy Kosey, President and CEO of the Alberta Dental Association, respectively, who are here today with us to celebrate Oral Hygiene Month. Please rise and accept the warm welcome of the Assembly.
The Honourable Minister of Immigration and Multiculturalism.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am pleased to rise today and introduce members of Azeri Calgary Stars, a vibrant community group celebrating Azerbaijani heritage through cultural activities and youth engagement. Joining us today are 16 guests, including 10 bright young Albertans and 6 dedicated adults who support their development and success. Please rise and receive the warm welcome of the House.
The Honourable Member for Lac St. Anne Parkland.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to ask a very special family and introduce them through you to you. It's the Macarag family. I have Anacita, Oliver, Cadence, Cedric, Carter, Jet, and Cyrone. Cyrone is my ledge coordinator. He's an amazing man, met his family this morning. Wonderful people. If you would please rise and receive the warm appreciation of this chamber.
The Honourable Member for Chestermere Strathmore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's an honour to introduce to you and all those in the Assembly my friends from Chestermere Strathmore, Pastor Vince Vander Veen and Pastor Sunday Adiola, along with his wife Tululade and his beautiful daughters Ayo Wanyola and Ayo Mide. Please all rise and receive the warm welcome of this House.
The Honourable Member for Livingston MacLeod.
I'm pleased to introduce to you and through you 2 dedicated UCP members, Brent and Micah Fader. Micah is very involved in politics, hopefully will take my position one day, and His Worship Brent, who is the Mayor of Fort Macleod. I ask them to please stand and accept the traditional warm welcome of this Assembly.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Decore.
It's, Mr. Speaker, I rise to introduce you and through you to the members of the Assembly, 3 members from my constituents, Bibi Awais Mohammed, Khadija Awais Mohammed, and Jama Mohammed Isaac. I ask to rise and receive the traditional warm welcome of the Assembly.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Millwoods, the Leader of the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to introduce to you and through you to all members Michael O'Neill. Michael just wrapped up 47 years of teaching with St. Paul's School Division. He has been a frequent visitor in the gallery and was here in solidarity with education workers during their strike. Please rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Are there others? Oh, the Honourable Member for Lacombe-Panoka.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do rise to introduce to you and through you to the other members of the Assembly, my husband of over 28 years, the love of my life, Dwayne Myrock Johnson, and our daughter Abby. Please rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Are there others? Seeing and hearing none.
Ministerial statements. Member statements.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton City Centre.
Mr. Speaker, it's like an episode of The Sopranos. In the face of ongoing questions in the corrupt care scandal, the UCP have gone to the mattresses. Last week we learned that when it comes to government employees talking to the Auditor General, the UCP preferred to keep it in the family. A top boss in AHS sent an email to all of their employees making an offer they can't refuse. It essentially said, if you're approached by the AG, say hello to my legal friend and our family lawyer, our consigliere, and your local boss. They'll sit in to watch the conversation. The message being sent is clear. As Robert De Niro in Goodfellas said, never rat on your friends and always keep your mouth shut. Best not cross the boss of bosses. Nice career you got there. Shame if something were to happen to it. Because in the UCP family, they want to keep their friends close and employees who know where the bodies are buried even closer. Allegations of shakedowns, bloated contracts given to close friends of the UCP family, favors done on the day of the Oilers netting a goal. Nothing to see there, just legitimate businessmen, honest politicians, and the innocent business of waste management. Political interference? Forget about it. Their plan? For their MLAs and ministers, omerta, the code of silence, loyalty at all costs. Not a word to anyone outside the family. Then dodge and deflect until the public looks away and they can quietly give this scandal cement shoes and send it to sleep with the fishes. As Tony Soprano said, one thing about wise guys, the hustle never ends. Unfortunately for them, the member for Airdrie Cochrane, well, he got out and they couldn't pull him back in. He's spilling the family secrets. Like economist and philosopher Ludwig van Mises, he knows, quote, it's the rule of law alone which hinders the rulers from turning themselves into the worst gangsters. And he agrees that in potentially the worst government scandal our province has ever seen, full of political interference and intimidation, Albertans deserve the truth. Right. The government that has no respect for the rule of law must be held to it. That's why we need a public inquiry today.
The honourable member for Cypress Medicine Hat has a statement to make.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. April is Oral Health Month, and today I rise to recognize the vital work of Alberta's dentists and oral health care teams who help keep our communities healthy one smile at a time. We know that the oral hygiene is health, and a healthy mouth is closely tied to our overall well-being, yet it's often overlooked. Dentists are essential members of our primary health care team. That's why the Alberta Dental Association is using this month to remind Albertans small daily habits like brushing, flossing, eating well, and visiting the dentist make a big impact. This month, we also look ahead. Our government has announced its intent to opt out of the federal Canadian Dental Care Plan by 2026 and instead expand on our own Made in Alberta solution, one designed for patients, not paperwork. The federal plan was introduced without collaboration and duplicates existing coverage, creating confusion and inefficiencies for Albertans when they visit their dentist. Alberta will negotiate for its share of the federal funding and use it to remove red tape barriers and improve equitable access to oral health care for Albertans, especially those who are currently falling through the cracks. Our province is committed to building a streamlined, efficient dental program that puts patients first and respects the role that our dental professionals play. I want to thank the Albertans dentists, hygienists, assistants, administrative staff, and dental teams for their dedication. Those professionals are integral for the health of Albertans, fixing not just our teeth, but also detecting early signs and helping prevent potentially bigger health issues. Mr. Speaker, I encourage all Albertans to use this month to get back to oral health basics. And if you don't have a dentist, visit albertadentalassociation.ca/dentist to find one today.
The honourable member for Edmonton Riverview has risen.
Mr. Speaker, we have long known that Albertans with disabilities and seniors wish to live in their communities. Despite this, we are still waiting for the UCP to properly fund home care services. April 1st of this year, Assisted Living Alberta became a legal entity. The UCP says by the fall of 2025, it will be fully operational. It will deliver wraparound services for Albertans with disabilities and seniors. The wait for services has been a long one. As the UCP stands up this new agency, there are several things to keep in mind. Primarily, Albertans wishing to live in their community must be provided with sufficient resources. Without this, they are put in dangerous circumstances that at times may be life-threatening. Home care support must be universal and not just for Albertans who have the means to pay out of pocket. Sadly, all too often, inadequate allocation of care hours means family members must fill in the gaps, or even more disturbing, Albertans go without the support they require to meet their basic needs. Personal support workers ensure that their clients live with dignity and autonomy. This is what each of us deserves and all Albertans deserve regardless of disability. Yet due to much chaos in the system, there are chronic staffing shortages. There is a high turnover due to low pay, poor working conditions, and lack of training for this vital work. The push to privatize home care has shifted the focus away from delivering the best quality care to creating profit for private agencies. This means workers are asked to do more with less, and the people they serve go without. The UCP can address this situation by increasing home care funding to improve the quality and availability of services, improve working conditions and compensation for home care workers, and provide resources to support expansion of home care. Today, I'm honored to table a petition created by the Friends of Medicare that asks the UCP to do just that. Over 37,000 Albertans signed the petition. It's time the UCP listen to Albertans with lived experience and invest in home care.
The honourable member for Calgary Fish Creek.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last Friday, our government announced an investment of $30 million through Budget 2025 to support the redevelopment of the new Taylor Family Campus Centre at SAIT. This significant investment will help modernize and expand student services, enhance campus life, and support the growing needs of learners who are preparing to enter Alberta's most in-demand industries. It will also provide valuable work-integrated learning opportunities for SAIT students, including in essential, high-demand areas like healthcare. In fact, the centre will allow first-year students to observe medical procedures in a clinical setting, enabling faster integration of their knowledge with real-world application. This observational experience will benefit more than 900 students each year, which will lead to increases in graduate numbers for health programs and graduates with hands-on experience. The new centre will also be home to an athletics and recreation centre, featuring an arena, gymnasiums, and a sports medicine facility. It will also include ample study spaces and food options so that students can study while grabbing a bite to eat or simply relax with their friends, benefiting SAIT's total student population of over 16,000 students. Mr. Speaker, the Taylor Family Campus Centre represents more than just bricks and mortar. It symbolizes our government's commitment to the next generation of skilled tradespeople, entrepreneurs, and innovators. With this investment, SAIT will be better equipped to foster academic achievement, physical and mental wellness, and a deeper sense of community and belonging on campus. I also want to recognize the Taylor family for their generous donation of $30 million, without which this project would not have been possible. I commend SAIT and the Taylor family for their vision and generosity, and I'm proud that our government, with the leadership of the Minister of Advanced Education, is stepping up to help make this vision a reality. Together, we are building a stronger Alberta with a workforce that is equipped to meet the demands of a growing economy today and in the future. Thank you.
The honourable member for Calgary-Buffalo has a statement to make.
Mr. Speaker, over the past several months, I've met with stakeholders, including artists, culture workers, and community advocates. These conversations have made one thing very clear. People working in the arts and creative industries want to be meaningfully involved in shaping the policies that affect them. In response to these conversations, I've introduced Bill 211, the Arts and Creative Economy Advisory Council Act. This bill would establish a formal advisory council made up of artists, cultural organizers, and especially those from marginalized communities to provide regular informed input to the Minister of Arts and Culture. It's a concrete step towards ensuring that these voices are heard and respected in the decision-making process. Mr. Speaker, in that same spirit, I would put to the Minister, what engagement processes does her ministry have in place to reach marginalized groups within the arts and cultural sector? And how are those perspectives being reflected in policy and funding decisions? Bill 211 is not just about consultation. It's about creating a platform for collaboration and accountability. The arts and creative economy are vital to Alberta's identity and future. Tens of thousands of Albertan people are employed in the creative sector, and industry generates billions of dollars in direct GDP and wages. We must make sure that those who contribute to the creative economy have a seat at the table. A province that does not invest in its art and culture is a province that forgets itself. If Alberta truly wishes to strengthen its economy and forge its own identity, we must invest in arts and culture. While it's important to invest in transformational cultural projects, we must never overlook the independent organizations, artists, and venues that nurture Alberta's creative spirit. Without art, a place is just roads and buildings, a place without a story. A province without a story is easily forgotten. A Bill 211 Advisory Council would ensure the diversity of Alberta's voices are reflected in the stories we tell. Thank you.
The honourable member for Edmonton Gold Bar.
Mr. Speaker, Alberta's farmers have been stewards of our land for generations, but the accelerating impacts of climate change, shifting seasons, prolonged droughts, and increasing pests are making their work harder and more costly. What if there were a way to boost crop yields, improve soil health, and remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere all at once? Fortunately, there is. It's called enhanced rock weathering. When rain falls, it combines with carbon dioxide in the air to form carbonic acid. This reacts with minerals in rocks and soils, forming secondary carbonate minerals that lock carbon away for tens of thousands of years. Normally, this process takes millennia, but by crushing certain types of rocks and spreading them on fields, the process can be dramatically accelerated. The benefits go beyond carbon removal. These crushed rocks release essential nutrients for crops, improve soil moisture retention, and reduce the need for fertilizers and pesticides. Research shows they can increase yields while lowering input costs. And it's not just theory. Companies like Microsoft, Google, and JP Morgan are investing millions into this technology because they see the potential, and Alberta is uniquely positioned to lead. We have the geology, the farmland, and the research expertise. The economics are changing fast. While earlier estimates pegged the cost of carbon removal through enhanced weathering at nearly $400 a ton, recent research from the University of Alberta shows that it can be done here for well under $100 a ton, making it one of the most affordable carbon removal options available. There's more work to do, but Alberta has a real shot at global leadership in this space. All we need is the courage and the vision to take the next step.
Honourable members, I would like to inform you that there has been a slight modification of the oral question period and member statement rotation as a result of the recent change to the caucus composition in the Assembly. Subject to any arrangements made between members for today, the member for Airdrie Cochrane, who sits as an independent, is entitled to one question per week, starting on question 9 of day 2 of the oral question period rotation, which is Tuesday, April 29th, and one member statement every 3 weeks starting on day 112 of the projected sitting day calendar, which is May 14th, and week 2 of the member statement rotation. Members will find the revised projected sitting days calendar and oral question period rotation on their desks. Now, honourable members, the real question is who did it better? Because the time is now 1:50, and that makes it oral question period. And the leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition has question 1.
Mr. Speaker, the corrupt care allegations include political interference, bloated contracts, and kickbacks. Last June 24th, the Minister of Justice went to Florida for Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals, but his latest ethics disclosure discloses no gifts. Albertans deserve to know if he's received anything from the people or companies at the heart of the corrupt care scandal. Ethical behavior is government business. Who arranged the Minister of Justice's trip to the Florida hockey game, and what did he tell the Premier about it?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, the staff and minister who traveled to attend the Oilers game in Florida paid their own expenses. That is why there is no disclosure to the Ethics Commissioner. There's no need to. When you pay your own money on your own personal dime for your own personal reasons and your own personal time, it does not have to be disclosed.
Right. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. No one would know the Minister of Justice was there had someone not posted a photo about it. Now, we've seen in this chamber the Minister repeatedly defending his government obstructing the Auditor General's interviews with public servants about the corrupt care scandal. And since the government has changed the ethics disclosure rules, their government doesn't seem to disclose anything ever. Albertans deserve to know not only what gifts the Minister of Justice may have received, but also who is accessing and seeking to influence the government. In that vein, Mr. Speaker, who did the Minister of Justice sit with at Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals in Florida?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I look forward to the Leader of the Opposition telling us what she did on her last summer vacation, because it is nobody's business if they are taking a trip with their own personal expenses on their own personal time. Our ethics rules are in alignment with other jurisdictions. The Minister of Justice's ethics disclosure is available online. Anyone can have a look at it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The ethics rules in Alberta have been updated by the UCP government to disclose less, to allow more, and to be able to do things that didn't used to be able to be done here. So while this government has no problem receiving gifts and not publicly reporting them, that's not the standard Albertans expect of their elected officials. Doesn't the Premier of Alberta believe that Albertans deserve transparency from this government about trips, about who is getting access, about gifts from insiders and friends during a public scandal that involves kickbacks?
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, I would expect that the members opposite wouldn't use the privilege of this chamber to defame other honourable members. I have already said that the minister paid his own expenses on his own time. And when the minister does that, it is not a matter of ethics and it is not a matter of disclosure, Mr. Speaker, and I would ask the member opposite to mind it.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Order. The Honourable the Leader of the Opposition's the one with the call.
Mr. Speaker, it wasn't just the Minister of Justice who found himself on a Monday in June in Florida at Game 7 of the Stanley Cup. The Premier's then Chief of Staff, Marshall Smith, was also there, given he is a central figure in the corrupt care allegations of political interference and kickbacks, and the government has even filed his text messages in some of the court proceedings that have been filed against them. Did the Premier approve her Chief of Staff's trip to Florida? Can she tell us who paid for his flight, tickets, and attended with him?
That's right.
The Honourable Premier.
Speaker, similar answer to a similar question. What my staff do with their own money on their own time is their own business. And I do not ask them to disclose every dollar that they spend when they take personal trips, Mr. Speaker. It's not my business to do that. It's not the business business of the member opposite to be asking.
The Leader of the Official Opposition.
2 weeks ago, I asked the Premier about Becca Pollock, her principal secretary, traveling to Florida for a hockey game as a gift of Sam Reich. Twice in this assembly, she gave me a one-word answer: no. No details, no information. We know from photos Becca Pollock did attend that game in Florida, but when reporters ask about it, they get one-line statements. Again, no details, no information. Who was there? What got paid for? Why is this government so stingy with the details during a scandal that has led to Albertans not trusting them?
The Honourable the Premier.
Very simple, Mr. Speaker. Personal time, personal money is not reported to me, it's not reported to them, it's nobody's business. What they choose to do with their own money is their own business, Mr. Speaker, and that is the reason why I'm able to answer the questions the way I have.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, when the government is knee-deep in corruption, it is everybody's business. And now Albertans don't have any ethics disclosures from these two staff, and unless the Premier comes clean, no one will know what happened, who got them there, who kept them company, what lobbying efforts might have taken place during these events. This corrupt care scandal will not go away, and neither will the allegations of kickbacks unless the Premier and this government does the ethical thing and calls a public inquiry. Does the government not understand calling the public inquiry solves it all?
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When people spend their own money on their own personal time, with their own personal expenses, it is not a matter for a public inquiry. Mr. Speaker, we have the judge who is going to be looking at the allegations that were made in the statement of claim by the former AHS CEO, and we also have the Auditor General who's going to be looking at the same. All of the information that they are seeking will be delivered. We have already transferred 13,000 records. We already have seen that they have arranged a number of interviews, and I'm looking forward to the results of that.
The Honourable the Leader of the Opposition for question number 3.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the member for Airdrie Cochrane tabled his letter of resignation from Cabinet in this legislature, and it says, I quote, "It became clear that the Minister of Health and possibly even you, Premier, had knowledge of identified procurement issues involving Alberta Health and Alberta Health Services, yet you deliberately misled our reduced quorum Health Cabinet Committee on January 30th, end quote. Why would the former Minister of Infrastructure accuse the Premier of deliberately misleading her own Cabinet colleagues?
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, no one was misled. The meeting in question was to talk about how we were going to stand up Acute Care Alberta, which came into effect on April the 1st, how we were going to wind down the transition board because it was no longer needed, and it was for the purpose of appointing an interim CEO, which we did.
Very good.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The member for Airdrie Cochrane makes another important statement in his letter. He says that the Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade also expressed concerns. The member for Airdrie Cochrane is specifically referring to the Premier deliberately withholding information from Cabinet. Wow. If true, this is incredibly concerning, shows very questionable practices by the Premier and government, and the public does deserve answers. Why were Cabinet ministers questioning the Premier about what she is and isn't telling them? And why does it sound like the same questions Albertans have about what she is and isn't telling them?
The Honourable the Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I note the date on the letter was February the 25th, and by February 25th, there's a number of things that we had learned from a statement of claim, from the statement of defense, from media reporting, and so we were all concerned about the need for us to get to the bottom of why it was that AHS was signing contracts with charter surgical facilities that contain different prices for the same procedure at different facilities. And that's the entire reason why we have Judge Wyant looking into it, is the reason why we have the Auditor General looking into it, and this government is fully cooperating in handing over records, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The member for Airdrie Cochrane wrote in his letter, quote, "This is not why we were elected. This is not what Albertans expect." And, quote, "If we can normalize deception in government business practices, what other indiscretions may emerge," end quote. Albertans did not elect a single member of this Assembly in order to deceive, Mr. Speaker. If the Premier's own Cabinet colleagues are worried about deception and indiscretions, Albertans are not getting the government they deserve. Yeah. Will the Premier finally clear the air, do the right thing, the overdue thing, and call a full public inquiry?
The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, no one was deceived. We have discovered that there were different prices for different procedures at different facilities. That was not known when we made the decision to move to Acute Care Alberta April 1st, and that was not known when we made the decision to part ways with the AHS CEO. And so now we want to get to the bottom of why that is. In fact, Mr. Speaker, what we've discovered is that's a problem in other areas. We just went through a full review of childcare for the same reason, and that's part of the reason why we made the changes. You find problems and you fix them, Mr. Speaker. That's what we do.
The Honourable Member for Airdrie Cochrane.
Mr. Speaker, I got to tell you, this is a little weird, but okay. It is well known that on January 30th, the Health Cabinet Committee met to discuss matters related to AHS and the board. Yesterday, I tabled my resignation letter in the House that referenced the fact that pertinent decision-making details were withheld from committee members. In my opinion, this lack of disclosure led to the dismissal of the AHS board. To the Premier, as a rule, do you feel that Cabinet, and caucus for that matter, should be provided with all materials necessary to make informed decisions?
The order, 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 order. The Honourable Minister of Justice is the only one with the call.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to the Honourable Member for the question. The meeting was for the purposes of enabling the appointment of an interim CEO and an official administrator of AHS to support the transition of AHS into a hospital-based service provider and the standing up of Acute Care Alberta, Mr. Speaker. We've been clear about that. The Premier just spoke about that. That was the purpose of the meeting. That was the content that took place in the meeting, Mr. Speaker. There was no information withheld from the Cabinet Committee members relevant to this issue.
The Honourable Member for Airdrie Cochrane.
Mr. Speaker, I didn't step down because nothing happened. Given that during the reference meeting I expressed concerns about making quick decisions without all available information, and given my instinct under these conditions is to back off until more data comes to light, and given ministers have a responsibility to follow honest disclosure, and given my letter states you deliberately misled a reduced quorum Health Cabinet Committee on January 30th, to the Premier, describe the government policy which upholds transparency and accountability in Cabinet decision-making processes.
The Honourable the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the member opposite is misguided, misinformed, and misinterpreted the context of that meeting. The meeting was about making sure that we have a CEO, an interim CEO of Alberta Health Services that also could be an official administrator, because, Mr. Speaker, we're at the most critical stage of the refocusing where we in fact take Alberta Health Services to becoming a full-service acute care provider, not the be-all of and end-all of everything. Mr. Speaker, that's what we're doing.
The honourable member for Airdrie Cochrane.
Mr. Speaker, that couldn't be further from the truth. Given that during the January 30th Cabinet Committee meeting that resulted in the firing of the AHS board, there was no mention of a letter from the former CEO of AHS, no mention of the Auditor General's notification, nothing about an AHS commissioned report on Tylenol, and zero about an AHS investigation into surgical facilities. To the Premier, is withholding information from Cabinet considered normal course of business? Because I took the issue as seriously. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Health has the call.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In fact, the member opposite again has it incorrect. Mr. Speaker, the meeting was about what I had just previously stated in terms of making sure that we have a CEO who is also able to be an official administrator. Mr. Speaker, the member opposite talks about the former CEO of AHS. The former CEO of AHS was in fact let go for a number of reasons, as has been stipulated in the Statement of Defence, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Order. The Honourable Member for Edmonton Whitemud has the call.
Mr. Speaker, the corrupt care scandal shows that political interference, bloated contracts, and kickbacks are apparently just how the UCP does business. But until last night, Albertans didn't know that the Minister of Justice attended Game 7 of the Stanley Cup playoffs last year in Florida. A very, very expensive game. Other ministers publicly admitted that they attended hockey games paid for by their friends, but not the Minister of Justice. So to the Minister, who paid for his flight to Florida and who paid for his ticket to the most expensive NHL game of the year?
The Honourable the Government House Leader.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, but I believe this question has been asked and it has been answered. But I am more than happy to reiterate to the Deputy Leader opposite that the staff and the minister who traveled to attend the Oilers game in Florida paid their own expenses.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Whitemud.
Given that the Minister of Justice had said repeatedly that his government will cooperate with all the many, many investigations into corrupt care, so let's see if he can be forthright with Albertans today. And given that if everything is above board with his very expensive trip to the Stanley Cup last year, answering this question with a yes should be pretty easy for him. Will the minister table a copy of the receipts for his flight, his hockey tickets, and accommodations for Game 7 of the Stanley Cup playoffs in Florida, proving that he paid for them personally?
The Honourable Order. The Honourable the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, own time, own dime. It's not for the members opposite to know what members on this side of the House or members on this side of the House to know what members that side.
Do it. Order. Order. The Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, what members do on either side of this chamber on their own time, on their own dime, is their own business, Mr. Speaker. And to use parliamentary privilege as an opportunity to malign the character of a member in good standing in this chamber is despicable, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Whitemud.
Given the Minister of Justice voted against a public inquiry into corrupt care, so Albertans know he's not really interested in transparency, and given that until last night he had not been transparent about the fact that he attended this very expensive hockey game with the Premier's top staff in Florida during a huge corruption scandal involving kickbacks from one of his closest political supporters, and given that this strong progressive woman has no problem holding unethical conservative men and women to account, when the Minister of Justice now admits that nothing less than a full public inquiry into his and the UCP's conduct will be enough for Albertans.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I think that it is wildly inappropriate for members in the opposition to use parliamentary privilege to malign a member of the government side. Own time, own dime. If the members opposite want to table all the gifts
The government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, at some point this legislative session will come to an end and members in both sides of the chamber will go to vacation. Do they want members on both sides to table all the receipts from those personal time and personal expenses, Mr. Speaker? This is a ridiculous precedent they're asking for and they should be ashamed.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Lougheed.
Alberta is not just another province in Confederation. It is the economic engine that drives this country. For over 60 years, Alberta has been the single largest contributor to Canadian equalization. To the new generation of flag-waving bandwagon Liberals, let's be clear, national unity depends on Alberta's success. To the Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade, what's our government doing to ensure that Alberta's world-class economic sectors are protected and promoted so we can keep building a strong Alberta and, in turn, a stronger Canada?
The Honourable the Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade.
Mr. Speaker, Alberta is proud to power Canada's economy with the youngest workforce, lowest taxes, and what is expected to be the highest GDP growth this year and next. We're defending that strength by cutting red tape, attracting record investment, and expanding market access for everything from energy to agri-food to tech. We've secured over $115 billion in private sector investment and added roughly 100,000 jobs since 2023. Alberta's economic success is not just good for us, it's vital for Canada, and we'll keep fighting to ensure our world-class industries are never held back by any threat, foreign or domestic.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Lougheed.
Given that much of the wealth generated in Alberta has helped fund essential services in other provinces for decades, and further given that Quebec has consistently been the largest recipient of equalization payments, benefiting from the wealth Alberta generates, can the same minister share what initiatives our government is taking to support Alberta's industries and ensure federal policies do not unfairly target or handicap Alberta's economic potential?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, for generations, Alberta's workforce has helped to build hospitals, schools, and transit systems in provinces across the country. Deeply flawed policies, whether it's the emissions or production cap, clean electricity regulation, or an unnecessary capital gains hike, could threaten the very prosperity that funds Canada's future. That's why Alberta is standing up, not just with words, but with action. We're diversifying trade, investing in value-added industries, and putting forward strong Alberta-first policies through every legal and political channel. We'll always put Alberta jobs and Alberta industries first, because when Alberta wins, Canada wins.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member.
Mr. Speaker, and to the Minister for his answer. Given that the recent growing momentum for national unity, and given that with Alberta's rich and diverse array of tourist attractions, our province's tourism industry significantly contributes to the broader economy, can the Minister of Sport and Tourism outline some of the initiatives our government has undertaken to encourage all Canadians to choose Alberta as their travel destination this summer?
The Honourable the Minister of Tourism and Sport, the Government House Leader.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tourism means jobs in the province of Alberta, and we are investing directly in new products around the entire province to make sure that Albertans, Canadians, people around the world know that this is the best place to live, to play, and to visit. And because of the work that we have done, Mr. Speaker, our first 3 quarters of last year have shown 3 times the national average of growth in tourism, Mr. Speaker. We're investing directly in tourism operators, and we're seeing the results.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Foothills has a question to ask.
Mr. Speaker, the UCP has one strategy to tackle their corrupt care scandal: silence. Well, the Auditor General wants to interview Alberta Health employees. Nope, silence. Talk to our lawyers. Oh, now the former colleague and Minister of Infrastructure has issues with our surgical contract procurement processes. Too bad. Silence. You're fired. Now, according to said former minister, the Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade took issue with the UCP hiding information with regards to the dismissal of the AHS board. Oh. Does that mean this minister is next on the chopping block?
The Honourable the Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade.
Mr. Speaker, as a member of Executive Council, I'm unable to comment on Cabinet deliberations, but the allegations into HS procurement are serious and I take them seriously. And I join my Cabinet and caucus colleagues in the desire to get to the bottom of this, to determine if wrongdoing occurred, and if so, to take any remedial actions warranted. Mr. Speaker, Albertans can have trust in their government and in their institutions, and we're going to make sure of that.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Foothills.
Given that, you'd think he would have voted for a public inquiry. Given that now the expelled Minister of Infrastructure was fired for the crimes of wanting the truth and asking questions, given that the former minister specifically named the Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade, writing that he was not, quote, satisfied that the practice of withholding pertinent decision-making details were justifiable and one in which they could support, end quote. Given that the minister the UCP booted yesterday firmly believes the Jobs, Economy and Trade Minister is a fellow truth seeker, is the former minister wrong, or is this minister's seat feeling a little hot today?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade.
Mr. Speaker, as this matter is now under active investigation by the Auditor General, Chief Justice Wyant, and the RCMP, I am unable to comment much further, but I will say that I join my Cabinet and caucus colleagues in supporting those investigations, and there's great willingness on this side of the House to take any remedial actions required at this time we have allegations. If new information and evidence warrants further action, we'll take it.
Order. The Honourable Member for Calgary Foothills.
Given that the UCP fired one of their own yesterday, removing any possible doubt that this government is hiding the truth from Albertans, not to mention their own cabinet ministers, given that the now fired minister named one name and one name only as a kindred spirit, one name in the entire government that feels the way he does, one name that believes the strategy to complete silence and avoidance is morally wrong, why is the Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade still in this government? Why won't they stand tall with their brave colleague?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade.
Mr. Speaker, I'm still in this government and cabinet because I have confidence in this government and cabinet. And I support the independent investigations that are currently underway. And again, if those investigations produce information or evidence of wrongdoing that warrants further action, I and my cabinet and caucus colleagues will support further remedial actions.
Order. The Honourable Member for Edmonton Gold Bar will come to order. The Honourable Member for Edmonton South is next.
Mr. Speaker, a leaked email from the Ministry of Jobs, Economy and Trade reveals that the Premier is reversing the Buy Local initiative she pretended to champion only a month ago. It's no surprise to learn that this UCP government has once again abandoned Team Canada and local Alberta businesses, catering to the demands of President Trump at the expense of Alberta workers and industries. Does the minister really believe that doing away with local procurement is a smart way to protect Alberta's economy from the onslaught of Trump tariffs?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade.
Mr. Speaker, we are supporting a Team Canada approach and a proportionate and measured response into actions taken by the United States. Mr. Speaker, as you know, we've been pursuing a primarily diplomatic approach led by the Premier, and we are seeking to not escalate an unnecessary tariff and trade war. So, Mr. Speaker, we've seen pauses in and delays in retaliatory tariffs. We don't want to escalate the situation. Procurement is a tool that we can take should the situation warrant it.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton South.
So given that the minister in his answer basically said he doesn't support local businesses, and given that Ontario, PEI and Nova Scotia have all introduced legislation to remove internal provincial trade barriers, and given that more than $530 billion worth of goods and services move across provincial and territorial borders every year, and given that this government prefers pandering to alt-right extremists and an erratic president who couldn't care less about Alberta's economy, instead of further strengthening internal trade nationally, to the minister, when will this government...
The Honourable Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are supporting our local business, and we are joining Team Canada in an effort to remove barriers to the internal trade of consumer goods. We've signed on with all the provinces and territories and the federal government to do just that. Yep. We're removing barriers to trucking across Canada. We're putting a national service standard into labor mobility across Canada. Mr. Speaker, this is a Team Canada approach, and I'm sure the Minister of Agriculture can highlight our Buy Alberta program.
The honourable member for Edmonton South.
Given that this minister will not say buy local and that he supports it, and given that all Albertans have come to expect from this UCP government cuts, chaos, and corruption, and given that Alberta is being left behind by this minister's...
Order. The honourable member for Edmonton South is the one with the call.
And given that Alberta is being left behind by this minister's anti-business approach to procurement, and while we watch our provincial and territorial neighbours rally together to reduce barriers, create good-paying jobs, and enhance national unity, will the minister commit today to focusing on local procurement, denouncing this government's pro-Trump approach, and finally playing Team Canada?
The Honourable the Minister of Agriculture and Irrigation.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Apparently the member opposites missed my announcement on Monday where we announced Alberta's Buy Local campaign that's going across Alberta right now. This campaign is going to continue to highlight supporting Alberta-made products. We also have our Made in Alberta labeling program. Unlike the members opposite who just raised taxes and fees and drove businesses out of Alberta and told people to go to BC to get a job, this government is going to support our local producers and businesses by supporting a Buy Local campaign.
Order. The honourable member for Edmonton Riverview is next.
Dozens of seniors in a government-owned building in North Edmonton have been trapped in their apartments for days, some for over a week because both elevators broke down. 83-year-old resident Walter Karras says he has a pacemaker, respiratory issues, and can't make it down the stairs. He's been stuck inside, running out of groceries and completely alone. To the Minister of Seniors, Alberta owns these apartments, so why is the government not taking action to help vulnerable seniors stranded in this building?
The Honourable the Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we are aware of the situation that's taking place with the elevator in that building. Unfortunately, to get the supplies that are needed to replace the problem with the elevator is taking time because of procurement issues, Mr. Speaker. That said, the department is in contact with the provider. We don't operate the building, but we do own the building, and working very closely with the provider to make sure individuals are safe during these circumstances and making sure everybody has what they need while we wait for the parts to get here, and then we will get the elevator fixed as fast as possible, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Edmonton Riverview.
Given that one elevator was broken for 2 months, the second one failed more than a week ago, and now seniors are being told it could be 10 more days before either elevator is repaired. Given they will be stranded in their apartments over Easter and prevented from getting out, even to go to religious services, and given that the building manager says their hands were tied because of provincial red tape, how can the minister justify leaving seniors trapped in their homes just because he didn't prioritize repairing a broken elevator?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it is our highest priority. That's why we're working closely with the provider. We can't just phantomly make up parts that exist. It's a very complicated problem with the elevator. Parts are on their way, Mr. Speaker. We're working closely with the provider, and we're making sure seniors are safe during this period of time. This is largely, though, Mr. Speaker, because the NDP refused to do capital maintenance and renewal. That's why one of the first acts I ever did as minister, Mr. Speaker, was bring in a new CMR program, capital maintenance and renewal program, Mr. Speaker. And it's why we're seeing thousands of units be replaced, Mr. Speaker, because we continue to fix the NDP's mess, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member.
Given that this government-owned building funded by taxpayers is meant to support seniors aging in community, but instead is leaving seniors stranded with some unable to buy their own food, get their own medicine, or leave their apartments at all. And given that this is because the UCP has not invested in maintenance throughout their time since 2019 as a government, and that's their responsibility, several years, and given that this is another example of the government's total failure to plan, maintain, and prioritize basic services for vulnerable Albertans, to the Minister of Seniors, after this kind of dangerous neglect,
The Honourable the Minister of Seniors, Community and Social Services.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I have been spending the last 2 years cleaning up the mess that member made when she was minister. When it came to capital maintenance and renewal, Mr. Speaker, we have food delivery service for the seniors involved. We have people going floor to floor working with the individuals that are involved. And when the parts arrive from California, Mr. Speaker, it will take less than 48 hours to get that elevator back online, Mr. Speaker. We're making sure people are cared for during that period of time. And we're going to continue to build more homes and fix the homes we got, unlike that member who built net zero homes the time she was built, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Glenora.
The member for Airdrie Cochrane said, quote, I was asking for openness, transparency, honesty, and instead of embracing that, the government has done everything that they can to impede processes, those very processes that could exonerate them, and instead they've made themselves look culpable. Why is the UCP government more focused on covering up their corrupt care scandal than earning back public trust and a cabinet minister?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, I think the first thing that we said as a government in this House was that we wanted to be absolutely clear that 100% cooperation with the investigative bodies that were looking into these allegations, looking into AHS procurement, looking into the processes and the allegations that were made, were first and foremost the most important thing that we took as a government, Mr. Speaker. We take these allegations seriously. That's exactly why we're working with the independent offices and the independent agencies that are investigating this, and we will make sure that they have everything they need to complete their investigations.
Given that the MLA for Airdrie Cochrane said his former colleagues have their heads in the sand, he said, quote, I liken it to somebody who doesn't go to the doctor because they don't want to find out that something is wrong. Given that the best way to clear the air is to open a window, call for a public inquiry, why did the government pretend that they were having a free vote when the only UCP member who voted for the actual motion was kicked out the following day?
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The best way to get to the bottom of this is to let the offices that are tasked with doing these investigations complete their work before drawing conclusions, Mr. Speaker. This is simply not accurate what the honourable member says. We have these bodies to conduct investigations when something like this is alleged. We'll let the process play out, Mr. Speaker. We'll draw our conclusions once we have the facts. Unlike the NDP, who have drawn conclusions arising from assumptions, Mr. Speaker, we don't do that.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for Edmonton Glenora.
Given that the member for Airdrie Cochrane tried to stand up for the Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade, Jet, echoing his concerns about corruption in the healthcare system, and given that despite these serious concerns, the minister failed to vote for a public inquiry, and as a result, both he and the smokescreen health minister are still in cabinet, and given that Albertans are still demanding answers about the Premier and her minister jetting off to Oilers playoff games, will the Minister of Jet set the record straight? Does he support a public inquiry, or is he sticking to the old Conservative playbook of shoot, shovel, and shut up?
No. The Honourable the Government House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I think the question about going to Florida has already been answered a number of times in this chamber, but I'm happy to answer it again for the member opposite, if the member didn't hear the first couple of times, that the staff and the minister who traveled to attend the Oilers game in Florida did so, and they paid for their own expense, Mr. Speaker. And what members on this side of the House or that side of the House do on their own time, on their own dime, is their own business.
Exactly. Order. The Honourable Member for Leduc Beaumont is next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Simply put, Alberta's economy is driven by our world-leading energy sector. And while Fort McMurray is the heartbeat of this sector, all regions of our province have their role to play. Within my riding of Leduc-Beaumont, Nisku plays a major role by providing support and supply services to the oil sands and all regions of the province. Over the years, Nisku has continuously adapted to meet the demands of the energy sector, and the community is deeply invested in its success. To the Minister of Energy and Minerals, how are regions like Nisku supporting the energy industry across Alberta?
Great question. The Honourable the Minister of Energy and Minerals.
I want to thank the member for the positive question, Mr. Speaker. It's good to see some positivity in this place. The historical impact of Nisku and Leduc is undeniable, Mr. Speaker. It's been an amazing venture for Alberta. home to Leduc #1, which started everything for the energy sector here. Still a strong energy sector, Mr. Speaker. It's home to the Leduc Business Park, the largest petroleum manufacturing industrial park in all of Canada, the second in North America, Mr. Speaker. More than 500 businesses, 15,000 highly skilled trades and professional workers. Nisku is a transportation hub with Freight Edmonton International and connections to CN and CPKC. Nisku is the place to be.
The honourable member for Leduc Beaumont.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm glad everyone in this House enjoyed the answer to that question. So given the increasing need for specialized services to support our energy sector, and further given the growing demand for innovative solutions in the oil sands that open doors for expanded opportunities in local communities, to the same minister, how do you plan to support auxiliary businesses in communities like Nisku to be active players in the energy sector, especially in terms of providing services and equipment to oil sands projects?
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Minerals.
Mr. Speaker, Leduc County is critical to our development of the oil sands and our success as a country and a province, Mr. Speaker. Nisku is home to companies like 5 Blue, whose custom engineered systems and products have been implemented in oil and gas facilities around the globe, and King's Energy Services, which operates a valve shop for pressure safety valves supporting production equipment maintenance. This government is fighting back against the feds to ensure that our energy sector does well, Mr. Speaker, because energy in Alberta means jobs. Energy in Alberta means a better world, Mr. Speaker. Energy in Alberta means we eliminate energy poverty, Mr. Speaker. Let's do it together.
The honourable member.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to the minister. So given that Leduc County and Nisku is a vital hub for energy infrastructure, demonstrated by the inaugural Nisku Energy Show scheduled for May 14th and 15th, and further given the growing pressures to modernize and upscale operations as our oil sands continue to expand to maintain our sustainability and competitive edge, to the same minister, what steps is our government taking to ensure that Nisku remains a key player in Alberta's energy future, especially as the oil sands expand?
Honourable Minister of Energy and Minerals.
Well, Mr. Speaker, first of all, we're going to stand up for Albertans and Alberta workers. We're fighting the feds by pushing against these stupid laws they come up with, Mr. Speaker. My daughter's probably going to get upset about that, but let's face it, C-59, C-69, the production cap, these are beyond their jurisdiction, Mr. Speaker. They're sticking their nose where it doesn't belong, and you know where they're putting it? In the pocketbooks of hard-working Albertans and people from all across Canada that rely on oil and gas industry, Mr. Speaker. We have the energy. We can provide it to the world. Let's do it together, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Calgary Elbow.
Cuts, chaos, corruption, Mr. Speaker, and now cruelty and cover-ups. The C in UCP government means a lot of things, but one thing it clearly doesn't mean is Canada. This is obviously not the United Canada Party government. It's no secret that members of the UCP government cheered Trump's election and, in fact, campaigned for him. Can this government explain once and for all why its policy actions support the Trump administration's attempt to annex Canada and call his tariffs a big win for us?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade.
Mr. Speaker, again, we've supported a Team Canada approach from the very beginning. Here's a number of ways. Alberta is co-leading the conclusion of the Financial Services Chapter under the Canadian Free Trade Agreement. We are joining all provinces and territories in the mutual recognition of consumer goods to increase flow of goods across Canada. We're working on a cross-Canada trucking pilot to remove barriers to getting goods across Canada. Mr. Speaker, we brought forward a national service standard to ensure that workers can freely move from province to province and work in their best and highest use field.
The honourable member for Calgary Elbow.
Given that the Premier ran to Mar-a-Lago to grab a photo with Donald Trump helping her standing with the U.S. MAGA movement, but ultimately did nothing for Albertans, and given the massive tariff uncertainty under a weather-vane president who just makes things up on the fly and is immune to lobbying, is there anything that this government would change in their tariff response, such as maybe stop calling them a big win for Alberta when they clearly haven't been for our businesses and our workers?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs, Economy and Trade.
Mr. Speaker, what we would change is 10 lost years under the federal Liberal NDP alliance, which has made us overly reliant on the United States as a customer and trading partner. We would also trade 4 years of stagnation where we lost billions of investment and jobs under the NDP government. Mr. Speaker, but those are things we can't change, and unlike the NDP, we look forward. We're building Alberta as part of a strong Team Canada.
The honourable member for Calgary Elbow.
Given that building Alberta doesn't mean kowtowing to Trump, given that Trump is using tariffs to attack and weaken Canadian unity, and multiple members of the UCP caucus are on record supporting a referendum to support Alberta from Canada, and given the Premier has threatened a national unity crisis and spoken to an organization founded by the separatist Preston Manning, why is the Premier following a policy of weakening Canada in the face of this existential threat, rather than, like Doug Ford, getting her elbows up? Doug Ford can stand for his province and Canada at the same time. Why can't this Premier?
Yes. The Honourable the Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, at every possible moment, this Premier has stood up and defended Alberta and Canada's best interests, Mr. Speaker. We have seen record job growth in this province, and I'll tell you what, that's a stark contrast to what we saw from the members opposite when they were in government, who literally told Albertans to leave the province because there was no opportunity. And what else did they do? They brought people from Ontario to come into their own homes and change light bulbs and shower heads, Mr. Speaker. Their record is pathetic.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Varsity.
Activity-based funding of surgery is being introduced in Alberta. The model requires planning and competent implementation to avoid unintended consequences. Can the minister tell us how she will avoid disadvantaging public hospitals by removing their access to anesthesiologists? Will she remove the contractual guarantees of anesthesiologists that give these advantages to the private clinics, or will she confirm that limiting public hospital access is an intended consequence?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, there is so much misinformation in that question that I don't know where to start. First and foremost, activity-based funding is actually being utilized in jurisdictions around the world. They're seeing great improvements in lowering wait times and making sure that surgeries are being done in clinically approved times. Mr. Speaker, the members opposite themselves, when they were in government, had over 40,000 surgeries done in chartered surgical facilities, Mr. Speaker. They are all publicly funded surgeries. We're increasing that, and we're going to make sure that people get their surgeries that they need.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Varsity.
Given that lack of anesthesiologists and intensive care staff limit completion of surgeries in public hospitals, and that only those working in the public system provide emergency coverage on nights and weekends, and given that work is easier, life is more predictable, and income may be higher when not disrupted by emergencies, how will the minister address these issues to make the public hospitals compete for the critical workforce? We have chaos in our healthcare system. This is adding to it.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm actually hearing from doctors and anesthesiologists and others that are in healthcare that really want activity-based funding because, Mr. Speaker, they want predictability. They also don't want someone who's a surgeon doesn't want to only be doing one day of surgery a month. They want to expand that. They want to practice what they do. They know they have long wait lines and people waiting for surgeries. They want to make sure that they're providing those services to every Albertan, and so why wouldn't we facilitate that when we can do it better?
The Honourable Member for Calgary Varsity.
Given that incentives drive outcomes, incentivizing surgery done in private surgical facilities may increase those specific surgeries. given other critical surgeries are not happening because of these incentives due to limited workforce, more people will suffer and die from delayed cancer surgery as incentives push the limited resources to other simpler procedures. How will the minister prevent wait times from growing even longer for cancer surgery? Cuts, chaos and corruption are hurting Albertans.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, misinformation that needs to be corrected. Mr. Speaker, when we talk about activity-based funding, it's in fact coming to a number, one number for a surgery, whether it's done in a hospital or whether it's done in a chartered surgical facility. It's actually making sure we have more access. It's what the Alberta Surgical Initiative did. We're opening up more OR rooms right across the province, Mr. Speaker, and we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to partner and have publicly funded surgeries in all our facilities, whether they're hospital or chartered surgical facilities.
The Honourable Member for Fort Saskatchewan-Vegreville.
Mr. Speaker, approximately 55,000 Albertans are thought to be suffering from symptoms which would qualify as a diagnosable eating disorder. These serious illnesses can affect anyone regardless of their age, gender, or ethnicity. When these illnesses are unrecognized or dismissed, they can persist and cause lasting physical and psychological damage. To the Minister of Mental Health and Addiction, how is our government promoting public awareness about eating disorders, and what is being done to make treatments available to more Albertans?
The Honourable the Minister of Mental Health and Addiction.
Hear, hear. Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and through you to the member for that question. Anyone who has a family member or friend who's been affected by an eating disorder knows that it can be an incredibly traumatic and difficult process. And I have a message for all those who suffer from eating disorders. Here in the province of Alberta, our message is hope and recovery, that it's possible and that it's important that we work with you as a government, which is why we partner with organizations like EHN Canada and Silver Linings Foundation to establish Alberta's first live-in treatment centre for eating disorders particularly. We're creating the world's best when it comes to recovery. That also includes those who suffer from eating disorders.
The Honourable Member for Fort Saskatchewan-Vegreville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to the Minister. Given that eating disorders commonly co-occur with other mental health challenges like depression, anxiety, obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, and others, and given that facing an eating disorder and other mental health challenges at the same time increase adverse outcomes for those suffering, and further given our government's commitment to support all Albertans with mental health challenges, to the same Minister, how does our government approach to supporting those with eating disorders fit in with Alberta's broader recovery focus?
The Honourable Minister.
Well, thank you again, Mr. Speaker, for the question through you to the Minister. And our government has a full continuum of care when it comes to recovery across the province. And we think it's incredibly important that we meet people where they're at, whether that's Counselling Alberta that we funded for 24/7 access now, 7 days a week, so that if you're not yet diagnosed with an eating disorder, you can still find access to services. We think it's about wraparound services that meets Albertans where they are, so that we don't have these sorts of illnesses progressing. Instead, we get to early intervention, prevention as well.
The Honourable Member.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Given that the successful partnership between our government, Recovery Alberta, and the Silver Linings Foundation and the Edgewood Health Network resulted in the creation of Alberta's first residential recovery centre for young Albertans with eating disorders, and given that those organizations and others like the Eating Disorder Support Network of Alberta provides critical supports for Albertans suffering from eating disorders, to the same Minister, how is our government's collaboration with Albertan nonprofits, service providers and others to offer more supports to more Albertans?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the question. And the watchword of Alberta is the philanthropic and non-for-profits that work this province all the way from top to bottom, from La Crete down to Lethbridge and Pincher Creek. It's so important that we work with those not-for-profits in our continuum of care. The vast majority of services I deliver are with organizations like the Silver Linings Foundation, those who work in addiction treatment, mental health, early intervention, prevention for youth and for seniors. It's largely those not-for-profits that are so important to this province's history and our future. Mr. Speaker, we continue to partner with them because we know that is the path forward in a recovery model.
Honourable members, that concludes the time allotted for oral question period. If I don't see members prior to their departure for constituency week this week, from my family to yours, I hope you have the best, most blessed Easter possible. I encourage you to take some time with your family. And in 30 seconds or less, we'll continue with the remainder of the daily routine.
Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Presenting petitions, notices of motions, introduction of bills, tabling returns and reports.
The honourable member for Edmonton Riverview has a tabling.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I'm honoured to table a petition created by the Friends of Medicare that asks the UCP to invest in home care. Over 37,000 Albertans signed the petition, and it's time that the UCP listen to their concerns.
Are there others? The honourable member for Cypress Medicine Hat. No? Oh, wow. The honourable, do you have a tabling? Yeah. The honourable member for Edmonton Highlands Norwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course I have a tabling because my office continues to be inundated with emails from folks absolutely frustrated and devastated by the fact that the UCP is clawing back the disability benefit. And again, I'm urging this government, take some time over the break, rethink your decision and do the right thing.
The honourable member for Lethbridge West, followed by Glenora.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a tabling from a column from the Lethbridge Herald on April 16th entitled "On the Exorbitant Price of Tylenol in Alberta." It's significant because it's authored by former mayor and longtime businessman in Lethbridge, David Carpenter. He was also overseeing AHS operations respecting finance and overseeing relations with the Auditor General of Alberta and did organizational risk management as a chair of audit and risk for AHS.
The honourable member for Edmonton, Glenora.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I have the requisite number of copies of the quotes I referred to today and my questions from the member for Airdrie Cochrane. There's one also that I wanted to highlight. The member says that over 80% of the UCP caucus had not read the statement of claim filed by former AHS president and CEO. Thank you very much.
Seeing and hearing none, the clerk.
Tablings to the clerk, deferred divisions.
Honourable members, brings joy to my heart because we are at points of order of which there was none. 2 days in a row. If there is no points of order on Monday, when we return from the constituency break, we will have reached a new high. And I'm sure that Easter will be able to deliver that for us all. Honourable members, that brings us to orders of the day, orders du jour.
Government motions. Motion number 62, Honourable Mr. Scow.
The Honourable the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that this assembly deserves a little more incentive than just breaking some kind of a record on points of order, maybe like ice cream or pizza. With that said, I will move to the government motion, motion 62, which reads as follows, and I am the bearer of bad news. Be it resolved that, pursuant to Standing Order 4.1, and for the duration of the 2025 spring sitting of the first session of the 31st Legislature, the Assembly shall meet on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday evenings for consideration of government business, unless the Government House Leader notifies the Assembly that there shall be no evening sitting that day by providing notice under notices of motions in the daily routine or at any time prior to 6 p.m.
Honourable members, this is a non-debatable motion. Having heard the motion as proposed by the Honourable the Government House Leader, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. In my opinion, the ayes have it. That motion is carried and so ordered.
Government bills and orders for second reading. Bill 49, Public Safety and Emergency Services Statutes Amendment Act 2025. Adjourned debate. Honourable Ms. Sigurdsson.
The Honourable member for Edmonton Riverview has a number of moments remaining should she choose to use them. Seeing none, the Honourable member for Sherwood Park.
Appreciate you. Thanks, Mr. Speaker. We have Bill 49 in front of us, and this is a bill that has some components in it that will take care of scrap metal. That sounds really good. It has a large portion of it which is dedicated to an ideological idea of a provincial police force with the UCP pandering to the most extreme elements, the most extreme separatists of their party, to try and assert a provincial police force. This government is in a deficit situation, Mr. Speaker. That's the projection for the next 3 years at a $68 barrel of oil. Currently, we're sitting at about $61, so we can expect. What's the price now? Oh, really good, Mr. Minister. It sounds like we're going to be only running about an $8 billion deficit if we keep this up. I'm happy to hear that. Not happy about the deficit. But I bring that up, and we are acknowledging there's a deficit situation. In the 2021 study of an independent police force for the province, we saw projections. These are, again, from 2021, so this is almost 4 or 5 years old. But that was like standing up a police force was going to be $372 million. So let's just round that up, and it's probably going to be at least $500 million to stand up a provincial police force. And again, the notion is that we're probably just going to be putting new uniforms on officers. And then the ongoing cost to have an Alberta provincial police force in 2021 was estimated to be about $164 million. So probably round that out about $200 million a year that the province of Alberta will have to come up with in order to have a Alberta provincial police force. And this isn't a popular idea, especially in a community like mine in Strathcona County. I was talking with a councillor recently. He referenced a survey and a study of university students in Alberta. Would they be interested in free beer? And turns out 83% of students living in residence at universities in Alberta would support free beer as a student. So that's interesting. Do you know how popular the RCMP is in Strathcona County? 87% of the residents of Strathcona County support the RCMP and having the RCMP as our police force. So I don't know if you've drawn this conclusion, but we're just showing that the RCMP are more popular in Alberta than free beer. This is a really important service that is a part of our history, a part of our province, and it's very important to rural communities across Alberta. When I'm talking with them, we went to a recent gathering of the Rural Municipal Association. On the floor of the convention, support for the RCMP was strong. It's high. People want to be able to depend on the RCMP because they know it's a reliable group of committed service members that are providing safety and protection for our communities. So when we have Bill 49 in front of us, if we can pull out that section on doing a better job of tracking scrap metal and theft around scrap metal, I think that you'll find a lot of support on this side of the House. It's a good idea, and we know it's a problem in our communities. It's a problem that we know is leading to organized crime and other problems in this province. And so being able to clamp down on that crime in Alberta. I think that's worthwhile time for this legislature to be discussing and make sure we're bringing forward some robust policy in order to be able to manage that crime problem in this province. But that's not what this is about. In large part, we know the UCP are trying to bring in a provincial police force, and it's a part of a pattern that we see of trying to separate from the rest of Canada. And it doesn't make any economic sense. There's no financial argument for it, so it's coming down to ideological. And it's not popular. There's no mandate that's been given for this. If I recall back to the provincial election we had just a little over 2 years ago, around this time the campaign was on, and there were a couple of matters that came up that were a part of this agenda to separate from Canada. One of them was to take Albertans' pensions out of the Canada Pension Plan. Albertans were very clear. It was very uncomfortable. Albertans were very uncomfortable with this provincial government taking their retirement funds out of the Canada Pension Plan. And so we saw in the campaign the Premier stand up and say, we'll keep our hands off your CPP. No one's touching the Canada Pension Plan. And then we saw afterwards, after the election, right away the government brought back this idea, proving they'll say anything because they are a corrupt group of politicians saying anything to get power, and then once in power, disregarding what Albertans want and the mandate they gave them. Albertans did not give them a mandate to pull our retirement funds out of the Canada Pension Plan. And this government started to act on it. Likewise, very big issue on the doors in Sherwood Park was the RCMP. A community that wants to maintain the services of the RCMP with a contract going out to 2032. We were under the impression during the campaign from the UCP when they said, you know, we're not talking about a provincial police force. And then we saw in the fall, right after the election in 2023, we saw this government bring forward legislation to start creating a provincial police force. And with Bill 49, it is a cleanup so that they are able to start putting in place an Alberta provincial police force. A very unpopular notion. When the minister stood up to introduce this bill, he left a path of scorched earth behind him. It was a quiet day on, I think, a Thursday afternoon, and the minister introduced this bill and blamed Ottawa, he blamed police officers, he blamed service members for some failure that he's invented. And there has been some fact-checking on his speech. And lucky for us, we have that here today. He repeatedly claimed that the authorized strength of the RCMP officers working under the Provincial Police Service Agreement is 1,911 officers. This is misleading and false. The minister and the ministry are aware that there are 1,911 staff, including civilian non-policing support staff, 139 civilian members in the RCMP employment in the province. And the minister was informed years ago that the number of the force of officers is 1,772 officers. The minister was misleading the House on the number of officers in the province. And so we're lucky to be able to have some fact-checking done by good members of the police service. Repeatedly misrepresenting the House, to the House, the facts was a big part of the speech when the minister introduced this bill, because it's clear that he's trying to create a case that somehow the RCMP are under-servicing Alberta and Albertans. And I know, talking to police officers, how committed they are to service of Albertans. And I want to thank them, and especially for their service in Strathcona County in Sherwood Park. I've grown up with the RCMP. They've been an important part of our community, and they continue to be an important part of our community. And even recently, we were celebrating the station chief who's moving on to a new role, and was telling us of their story when she joined the police force. And it was heartwarming, but you just really know her commitment is the commitment of all the RCMP officers that are working in the service. And she was telling stories about when she was in the force, and when she would be able to, in remote and rural parts of Canada and remote and rural parts of Alberta, when you come to the aid of someone and you say, now you're safe. She said that's the greatest feeling that she can ever have as a police officer. And this gratitude we have for our service officers is really important to convey. On this side of the House, we have no interest in an Alberta provincial police force. We want to maintain the independence of municipalities to be able to determine what service they want to hire for policing of their area, and make sure that the RCMP is a service that is available to the communities that want it, like Strathcona County. In that scorched earth speech the minister provided to the House, leaving behind no doubt that he is very intent on bringing in a provincial police force and trying to undermine our current policing. It was clear to me, Mr. Speaker, that in the office he holds, he seems to be limiting the resources for policing in this province. And in limiting the resources is trying to create poorer service and less service in this province, or at least give people the impression, and I know the officers on the front line are doing their best to respond and deliver services and safety and protection for Albertans. The minister said that, he alleged that 911 calls are going unanswered in Alberta. False, not true. Described some anecdote of some response that took an hour and a half, which is not going to be the norm in this province. 90% of all calls in this province are answered within 2 minutes. There is 87% are answered within 1 minute. The majority of calls to 911, you get someone that picks up on the other side. And so the minister misled us on that in this House. When it comes to response times from the officers, the minister was sounding like the police officers never get there. We have very remote parts of this province, which I understand it's going to be challenging to cover ground when we're working with the vehicle. But the average call time is under 20 minutes in remote parts of this province. Under 20 minutes. So these are the facts. These are the data. This is coming from the 911 responses. We're covering over 600,000 square kilometers in this province, Mr. Speaker. You know, so it's a geography with remote parts. I've lived in these remote parts of this province, and I understand what we're dealing with when we're talking about rural areas. So when we, yeah, you're welcome to. Yeah. When we have this large province with parts that are quite remote, you know, getting someone from a station from one side of a district to another, maybe it's taking time, and I understand how important that can be. But I know the RCMP are working harder. And I think maybe the more important part, Mr. Speaker, is that police officers work hard at this. And so if we were to change the uniforms, give them new command, you know, spend the $500 million to change the uniforms, spend the $200 million a year to be able to operate and have a new provincial administration, which we know with this group, it'll just be bloated contracts for their friends, because that is their MO. That is how they operate. If there's an opportunity to provide a public service, and they can do it, and they can get control of how you distribute those funds, you know there's going to be bloated contracts in there. And so we're going to have this really incredible challenge that we're going to be facing, where maybe they're going to be dealing with more corrupt care scandals, but on the policing side of things in this province. I think maybe the most extreme part of that scorched earth speech that the minister gave is when he blamed the union that represents the RCMP, somehow, which is the members. It's the RCMP members, the proud members that have all joined it, for somehow being responsible for the underserviced and remote areas, the under-resourcing. Under-resourcing sounds like a provincial problem. It's not a frontline worker problem. We have outstanding constables and officers and management in this province, and we are committed to supporting them on this side of the House. We want to keep the RCMP as an option for Albertans. Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
Are there any others wishing to join debate? The member for Edmonton Castle Downs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to rise this afternoon to speak to Bill 49, Public Safety and Emergency Services Statutes Amendment Act 2025. You know, I'm really grateful for the debate that's been going on from our side of the House, because we've been clarifying the record, talking about what Albertans are asking for, sort of talking about some of the things that the minister himself has said that organizations have come forward and said that aren't true. My colleague from Sherwood Park mentioned some of those stats in his statement. And I'm going to get to those stats at some point, because I think it's really important to hear what the minister is saying versus what policing is saying. And I think that we know what Albertans are saying, and they are against having an Alberta police force. My involvement with working with the police and the RCMP in my career as a social worker has been quite extensive. I worked with the Edmonton Children's Services, and in partnership with the CART team, which is the Child at Risk Response team, which is a social worker and a police officer, and they respond to Edmonton and area investigations and reports. I was heavily involved with training police officers in children's services, specifically around child welfare calls related to sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect. And so I have relied heavily in that partnership. Later in my career, when I became somewhat of a specialist, I was an assessor with Children's Services, and I was tasked with responding to what were considered high-profile cases that came through in a strategic effort to minimize the amount of workers that were interacting with the file, to ensure that the integrity of the family was held. And so what that meant was I was given a lot of high-profile cases, which meant, Mr. Speaker, if you're not familiar with some of the allegations and investigations regarding Children's Services, it's typically the ones that hit the news. And so in one of the files that I worked with, I worked specifically with the Alberta ICE team. Now, for those that aren't familiar with Alberta ICE, it's the Alberta Integrated Child Exploitation Unit, and it's a police integrated unit involving the RCMP, Calgary Police, Edmonton Police Service, Lethbridge Regional Police Services, Medicine Hat Police Service. There's two teams in the province. They have a northern and southern team, and each team is comprised of team lead, investigators, and forensic technicians. So their focus is accessing possession, distribution, importation, manufacturing of child pornography and any other computer-related child sexual abuse, child luring over the internet, voyeurism involving victims under the age of 18, child sex trade, and tourism. So this is an absolutely essential team that work with local police and the RCMP. And without this joint team, these investigations would be very, very difficult, because the information that they access is across many different systems. Some don't have access to the full CPIC. It allows for a relationship between community policing and RCMP. And so right here in Edmonton, we have what's called the K Division. And so that's where a lot of my work with Children's Services happened, in working with the ICE unit. Now, this group of individuals specializes in some of the most horrific crimes against children. The collaboration that has been established for these different policing agencies between the local police and the RCMP is essential for the safety of children. Now, what this minister is proposing, I am deeply concerned about what would happen to this partnership. Now, this is just one piece of what the RCMP does all across the province. I'm curious how many other collaborations are in effect that work beautifully, that most people don't hear about because it works so seamlessly. Now, my involvement with working with ICE was absolutely essential because we rely so heavily in Alberta, in Edmonton specifically, around our local policing, the Edmonton Police Service. I have family and friends that work for EPS. I have family and friends that work for the RCMP. And they have the highest standard of working to support children's services. And those specialized officers all across the province do some of the hardest work when it comes to investigating some of these horrific crimes on children. And I think that there's a huge oversight when it comes to this plan for legislation that is at great risk for what Albertans perhaps don't know, and thank God don't know that this unit exists, because they haven't had to have the experience of working with this unit. I've seen this unit work in collaboration with US policing, where there's child pornography stings that are happening in the United States, and they know about the work that ICE does. And there's this relationship that exists not just in the province of Alberta, across Canada, and the relationship that they built with other policing services is incredible. The information sharing and support that these units get is so important to the safety of children in our province. And I worry that this political move to create an Alberta Police Service is disregarding the years and years of relationship building and expertise that have been created because of the collaboration between the RCMP and the multiple police services that exist all across the province. And, you know, I don't hear the minister talking about some of that great work that happens. And I am so grateful, like profoundly grateful, for the members of the RCMP and the various police services that come together to provide that support. And it's that relationship that is so essential in making sure that everybody is putting their jurisdiction aside and they're supporting Alberta kids. And that, to me, speaks to some of the unintended consequences, perhaps, Mr. Speaker, of what this piece of legislation would do. What happens to those units? What happens to those officers and social workers that work so hard to ensure that internet crimes on children aren't happening in the province of Alberta? Now, I think when we're talking about the way that this piece of legislation was introduced, we absolutely need to talk about what the National Police Federation responded with. On April 11th, they responded in a letter to all members of the legislature, specifically to the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services. So they wrote a letter expressing some deep concern about the misrepresentation from the minister. And I haven't heard the minister clarify that on the record since this letter came forward, which is really concerning because Albertans should be able to trust their government. Yet we have seen over and over and over again that this government cannot be trusted. They have shown that they do not value transparency, accountability, and just basic responsible management of public resources. And so when we have an organization like the NPF coming forward, clarifying for the record what the numbers actually are, as opposed to the misrepresentation of the minister, I'm quite concerned that he hasn't come forward and corrected the record, Mr. Speaker. We have such an incredible opportunity to enhance what's already happening. Instead, we have a minister that is working on what seems like a political agenda, creating something that nobody is asking for. The municipalities across the province have come out loud and said that they haven't asked for this. They don't know where this is coming from. The Alberta sheriffs have come forward and said, nobody's talked to us. We don't know where this is coming from. And so one of the things I would like to know is, what is the motivation behind this? Because he's been misrepresenting the numbers, and that's been clearly pointed out by NPF. So what's driving this decision, Mr. Speaker? I know that the previous member from Sherwood Park talked about statistics, about 86% of Albertans wanting to retain the RCMP. So we have 86% of Albertans wanting to keep the RCMP. We have the NPF saying that the minister is misleading Albertans. What's the truth behind this shift that nobody wants? The municipalities have come forward, and those are our elected leaders all across the province, saying we don't want this. We haven't asked for this. We haven't been consulted on this, which is a theme that happens all across this government. So rather than taking a budget and enhancing some of the police services, talking to those that provide the services like the RCMP, like the sheriffs, like our local policing, we have a government that's putting forward a piece of legislation that nobody wants. So one of the questions that I think we can answer clearly on this side of the House is that we stand with Albertans and are asking the government to stop this absolutely unnecessary and costly police experiment. That is something that we stand with Albertans in asking the government to just stop it. Instead of wasting hundreds of millions of bureaucratic restructuring, we should be investing in essential services like frontline policing resources, crime prevention programs, mental health support, addiction treatment, community safety initiatives. Those are all of the programs and services that actually impact a community, that enhance safety in a community. Yet we see this government cutting continuously those services all across the province. It's something that they're not considering when they make these decisions. It's not fact-based, Mr. Speaker. It's not community-driven. It's not listening to the leaders all across Alberta. It's not listening to the policing services. So who are they listening to? What is motivating this piece of legislation? I think that if they took the time and listened to what Albertans want, if they looked at the services that are out there, like ICE, like I had referenced, talking to them about the incredible services that they offer in that collaboration between RCMP, local policing, and community, that's where the results happen, is the structures that are existing that we could be enhancing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me this time to stand and talk to the government, and I hope that some of this will be heard and that they will perhaps not proceed.
Thank you. Are there others wishing to speak? The member for Edmonton Decor has risen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I rise today on behalf of people of Edmonton Decor, a riding that is dear to me, that I represent in this House, a community that works very hard, but a community of working families, community of newcomers, community of students, and community of seniors. But also a place where many now live in fear of public safety. In recent months, Mr. Speaker, we have seen troubling rise in youth gun violence. My office continues to hear from residents who are devastated. We have lost young, bright futures, cut short by violence. These aren't news headlines. These are our neighbors, these are our siblings, these are our children, these are our youth we have raised together as a community. These are the future of the province. People in Edmonton Decor, in the northeast side of Edmonton, are not asking political stunt or political restructuring. They are asking for help. They want their youth saved. They want their bright future to thrive. They are asking for investment in programs. They are asking programs that prevent violence, not a structural reengineering and reactionary political stunt. They are asking for more mental health workers. They are asking for more outreach teams. They are asking more support for their youth. Many of them fled from conflicts and came to Canada to build the future of their young children, to build the future of their youth, to build the future of their community, and to build the future of this province. The least they expect, Mr. Speaker, is youth that fall through the cracks. But instead of listening and figuring out the solutions, this government has tabled Bill 49, which we are debating today, a bill that does nothing to address those real issues, those urgent concerns, those worried mothers who are reaching to our offices, screaming, asking for ways to prevent so that the youth don't cut their lives short. Instead, this government lays the groundwork for Alberta Police Force that nobody asked for. I've never received a single email or a single call from my constituency asking Alberta Police Force. Not only asking, it's a bill that nobody supports. Let's be absolutely clear here, Mr. Speaker. What's happening here? This bill is not about improving public safety, and this bill is not about preventing youth going through the cracks or youth losing their lives through gun violence. This bill is not about improving public safety. It is advancing a political project. Actually, a pet project that will cost Albertans thousands, hundreds of millions of dollars while doing nothing to protect the community that we were supposed to protect as a government. The most vulnerable families, especially in urban centers like Edmonton, like Calgary, are still waiting for a real solution for addiction treatment. They're still waiting for a real solution for a mental health support. They're still waiting for a real solution for crime prevention program. This bill ignores all of those. Mr. Speaker, the people of this province have spoken, and they have been remarkably consistent. You've heard from my colleagues highlight the statistics. Just to remind for those members who are not paying attention, 86% of Albertans want to keep the RCMP. It's working. So why are we fixing something that's already working? We have a lot of issues that needs to be fixed. This is not one of those. 84% say that there are far more pressing priorities than building a new provincial police force. Not only in the urban centers where when the impact have been felt significantly, but also rural leaders, municipal associations, indigenous communities, policing experts, every Albertans all rejected this idea. It's not an idea of even worth trying because nobody supports it. But what has this government been busy? Ignore those experts, ignore the municipal associations, ignore the indigenous communities, ignore the police experts, and ignore everyday Albertans. They brushed all those ideas of rejections on the side. You know what is hidden in there? It's refusing to consult or listen. Bill 49 is just the next step in a long-running campaign to create an Alberta police force through the back door. I don't know if Mr. Speaker, that there's a time that we have debated here a similar kind of political restructuring or a pet project. Remember those when we were talking about the Canada Pension Plan? Mm-hmm. It was under the same name of restructuring or creating something that nobody is asking, that Albertans is supposed to. The government is very busy renaming things. The government is very busy retooling or restructuring. The government is very busy laying down the architectures of multiple major infrastructures that we have, whether it is insurance, whether it is the policing, whether it is our healthcare system, whether it is our pension system, our retirement savings. All of those are now under restructuring or retooling. And no Albertans have asked for that. The bill redefines the Independence Police Agency. It renames things. The goal remains the same. This bill allows the creation of corporate-style police services. This bill enables municipalities to enter into agreement with these agencies. This bill sets up new budgeting and oversight structures. It sets up it creates a vague policing committee to govern relationship between local government and these agencies. I thought this is a government that will be reducing red tapes. Doesn't seem like here. But you know what it fails, what the bill fails to answer, Mr. Speaker? The most basic questions. Who's paying for this? What happens if municipalities don't want to opt in?
Great question.
Will there be a minimum staffing standards required? How will rural coverage improve? At all? What accountability will exist to prevent political interference?
That's the big question.
What structures will you put in place to avoid some erasure? Albertans are right to be concerned, Mr. Speaker, because this government has already shown what it doesn't respect. Do you know what that is? The basic accountability. Do you know what that is? The transparency.
Yep.
Do you know what that is? The duty to consult. Those are the basic things that this government fails to respect in terms of creating public policies that will have an impact in the lives of Albertans. Reading this bill, there are serious risks here, Mr. Speaker.
Tell us them.
The bill could undermine civilian oversight, downloads massive financial burdens onto local governments. And you know what's worse? It creates a two-tiered, inconsistent policing system across this province. And let's not forget, we've been asking, this government refused to release the full cost of its provincial police plan. Like, how much will it cost Albertans taxpayers? Mr. Speaker, we all want safer communities. I started on my remarks that in Northeast Edmonton, this is one of the things that people ask me quite a lot. We all want communities, safer communities, but real public safety doesn't begin with rebranding. It begins with prevention, with outreach, with care, with trust. That's how you build up safer communities. That's what people in Northeast Edmonton want. And I believe it is what rural Albertans want too. You know what will make a difference? Hiring more frontline officers, not just changing their uniforms. You know what makes a difference? Funding community policing and school resource programs, not drawing up new org charts. Do you know what works? Expanding mental health response teams, not confusing jurisdictions with new acronyms or restructured organizations. Investing in Indigenous-led justice and safety strategies, not ignoring those real solutions. But instead, the UCP wants to funnel money into a top-down policing experiment with no public support, no clarity, and no accountability. And while they try to sell this as fixing the rural crime, it's rural Albertans who have been most vocal in saying this is not what we need. Municipal leaders have been very clear about this. Mr. Speaker, this bill doesn't serve the people. This bill doesn't serve the people. This bill actually serves a political ideology. That's why we stand with municipalities, police experts, and everyday Albertans to say to no to Bill 49. We will try to advocate for safer communities, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any others wishing to speak? Hearing Deputy Government House Leader.
Thank you. Thank you. And I move, after a very substantive debate, that we adjourn debate on Bill 49 for now.
Having heard the motion from the Honourable Deputy Government House Leader, does the Assembly agree with the motion? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. That motion is carried.
Under Government Bills and Orders for second reading, Bill 37, Mental Health Services Protection Amendment Act 2025. Adjourn debate. The Honourable Mr. Scow.
Are there any members wishing to speak to Bill 37, Mental Health Services Protection Amendment Act 2025? Seeing none, I will turn the floor over to the Minister waives closing debate. The Honourable Minister of Mental Health and Addiction has moved second reading of Bill 37, Mental Health Services Protection Amendment Act 2025. Does the Assembly agree to the motion for second reading? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. No. That motion is carried.
Bill 37, Mental Health Services Protection Amendment Act 2025 is now read a second time. Under Government Bills and Orders for second reading, Bill 44, Agricultural Operation Practices Amendment Act 2025. Adjourn debate. Mr. Van Dyken.
Are there members wishing to join the debate? Seeing none, I will call the question. The Honourable Minister of Agriculture and Irrigation has moved second reading of Bill 44, Agricultural Operation Practices Amendment Act 2025. Does the Assembly agree to the motion for second reading? All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. So carried.
Bill 44, Agricultural Operation Practices Amendment Act 2025 is now read a second time. Under Government Bills and Orders for second reading, Bill 50, Municipal Affairs Statutes Amendment Act 2025. Adjourn debate. Member Tejada.
Are there any members wishing to join debate on Bill 50? The Honourable Member for Edmonton Gold Bar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm pleased to rise and offer a few comments on Bill 50. Before I get into the heart of the matter that I want to address, I want to thank all of my friends here on this side of the House for raising a number of important concerns with some of the changes that have been that are being brought forward in this bill. They've gone on at length about their concerns about the Local Authorities Election Act changes and the Municipal Government Act changes. And I really have nothing substantial to add to the comments that they've made on that matter, on those matters. And so I would like to focus my comments on the changes to the Homebuyer Protection Act and the Safety Code Council Act that are also proposed in this bill. Now, just to remind members of the history of the Homebuyer Protection Act, the Homebuyer Protection Act was introduced by the PC government of the day in 2012. during the last time that Alberta was going through a residential construction boom. And people who purchased new homes were ending up with no end of trouble with the quality of the homes that they were purchasing. And unfortunately, up until 2014, if you bought a new home, you had no guarantee of the quality of the workmanship and no recourse if that home didn't meet certain standards. And so, to give credit to the government of the day, they brought in the New Home Buyer Protection Act, which mandated that new homes be sold with a warranty period. Now, the warranty is variable with respect to different parts of the house, but it can extend up to 10 years with regards to things like the foundation and those sorts of elements of the structure. When the next significant change that the Home Buyer Protection Act received was in 2017, I believe, when we were in government, and that introduced a builder licensing regime. So prior to the introduction of those changes, anybody could hold themselves out to be a builder of a home and engage in that practice. And we saw that as a result of that lack of oversight of the home building trade, that many Albertans were still purchasing new homes that had significant problems. And one of the things that we did to address the issue of lack of consumer protections with regard to new home buyers was to introduce this builder licensing regime, so that at least there was some kind of minimum standard that a person had to meet if they were going to hold themselves out to be a home builder, and that if for any reason the home builder failed to meet its obligations, that they could be held to account. So it's good that the government is continuing to maintain the heart of the new Home Buyer Protection Act, especially at a time when the need for housing in Alberta is possibly as strong as it's ever been. We want to make sure that the people who are making such large purchases have some modicum of consumer protections. But I have a number of questions with regard to some of the changes that the government is making with respect to new home buyer protection. And my first question is with regard to excuse me, replacing notarized statutory declarations for owner builds with a simplified digital confirmation. Now, as many members of this House probably know, because we are notaries, it's not an insignificant endeavor to get a statutory declaration notarized. And I can understand in principle that it would be more convenient for an owner builder to just simply declare using a digital confirmation that they are in fact an owner builder and not have to get that declaration notarized. But I'm wondering how many complaints with respect to the existing process did the Ministry of Municipal Affairs receive when they decided to make this change? Was this a significant barrier for owner builders to overcome? Was this something that, is this another problem that the minister is imagining needs to be dealt with? I'm just curious to know if the Department of Municipal Affairs had any kind of evidence or statistics behind the number of owner builders who complained about the existing statutory declaration requirement that prompted this change. Now, another change that's presented in this bill is that homes that are authorized to proceed without a warranty In those cases, a notice will be placed on the home's title to inform potential buyers. This seems like a necessary change and something that will provide additional protections for consumers, and that's something that I heartily endorse. Now, a third change that is being made in this bill is expanding warranty exemptions for home sales to include financial hardship in addition to undue hardship, in an attempt to make these hardship exemptions less restrictive. Now, one of the things that I'm curious about is the process that the minister is envisioning here for applying for financial hardship. There's nothing in the legislation that indicates how somebody who, so an owner builder has built a home, at the time that they get the exemption from the warranty requirement, they've made a declaration that they will live in the home for the entirety of the warranty period. But at some point along the line, they've encountered financial hardship, can no longer afford to stay in the home and must sell it. In principle, that makes sense. But in what is the process that the ministry is going to create to allow somebody who's seeking that exemption to demonstrate financial hardship? And how quickly will the ministry be able to deal with those applications for exemptions? I'm sure that all of us who have ever had to pay a mortgage understand the significant financial pressure that it places on us. And if we can't meet the mortgage payments because of financial hardship, we need to get out of those mortgage payments as quickly as possible. And I don't want the ministry to create a process that is unnecessarily lengthy and creates unnecessary delays when people are legitimately seeking to get out of this warranty requirement by claiming financial hardship. Another question that I have for the department with regards to this financial hardship exemption is, does it apply to only owner builders, or does it apply to all home builders? Because we certainly don't want to create a system where we are creating a giant loophole for home builders to get out of the warranty requirements by creating some fake financial hardship and exempting themselves from the warranties and leaving the buyers of these homes on the hook when it comes to getting the warranty protections that they deserve. So I hope that at some point during the debate, the minister or somebody else from Executive Council can address that significant question. It's my understanding that this bill also reintroduces an appeal process through the Land and Property Rights Tribunal. My understanding is that this was an appeal process that existed prior to the creation of the Land and Property Rights Tribunal, but was inadvertently lost when that tribunal was created by the amalgamating 4 separate government boards. I am glad that the government has at least admitted that they've made a mistake and that they've attempted to, that they're addressing a mistake that they've made, but it just reinforces the need to proceed with these kinds of changes with a great deal of consideration and forethought and preparation, making sure that when they change something that they don't lose something of value. And, you know, while I have no idea how many potential appeals to the Land and Property Rights Tribunal have been missed out on because this process didn't exist due to the government's mistake when they created the Land and Property Rights Tribunal in the first place. But I'm very concerned that if they couldn't get this minor thing right, what big mistakes are they making when it comes to tearing apart the healthcare system into 4 separate entities and creating a whole bunch of other oversight bodies and crown corporations and what have you? I certainly don't want to be discussing at future points in this House legislative corrections to the changes that we're seeing in other areas of government activity, like we're seeing here in Bill 50. Now, with respect to reintroducing the appeals process to the Land and Property Rights Tribunal, I also have concerns with the tribunal's ability to handle additional appeals. We were at Public Accounts just a couple of days ago, and representatives from the Municipal Affairs Department talked about the state of the Land and Property Rights Tribunal, and of the more than, well, it was concerning, of the more than 5,000 appeals that the Land and Property Rights Tribunal received in fiscal 23-24, representatives couldn't tell us how many of them had even received a decision, much less how many of those applications received decisions within the timelines that the department has set for itself. And yet, in the budget this year, we don't see any significant additional resources for the Land and Property Rights Tribunal, but we're adding additional work to the Land and Property Rights Tribunal. My concern is that the existing claims that sit before the Land and Property Rights Tribunal will continue to be delayed, and people who have these additional appeals will be waiting for an unacceptable period of time to have these appeals heard. So I sincerely hope that the Minister hears that concern and provides additional resources to the Land and Property Rights Tribunal so that it has the capacity to deal with these additional appeals in a timely manner. One of the final changes that the bill brings forward is expanding the Safety Codes Council to include additional appointees who can provide specialized advice on home buyer protections. Okay. My concern is that that the Minister make sure that these appointees represent both home builders and providers of home warranties and consumers and home buyers and people who are purchasing the homes that are guaranteed by these home warranties. We certainly don't want the case to be that the builders and the home warranty providers are the only ones who are giving advice to the Minister on how to structure the home warranty program. We want to make sure that consumers' voices are heard and that consumers will continue to be protected by strong home warranty provisions. And so I'm hoping that the Minister or representatives or somebody else from Executive Council can address that concern and tell us how he's going to balance the perspective of both home builders and home buyers through these additional appointees on the Safety Codes Council. It's interesting that the legislation is being changed so that the...
Any other members to join the debates? The Honourable Member for Edmonton-Glenora.
My time flies when the member for Edmonton Gold Bar is speaking, so I want to thank him for discussing an important piece of this legislation. And I'm going to focus my remarks on 2 different sections. It probably won't surprise people that I'm going to talk about the implications to school boards, having served as a trustee and chair for the Edmonton Public School Board in 2 elected terms. And the other piece I'm going to talk about is the changes to the MGA and local elections. I will start perhaps Oh, I wish I could pop quiz the Assembly, but just through you, Madam Chair. I grew up in a municipality in the province of Alberta. Does anyone remember which municipality? Oh, way to go. Oh, almost unanimous. Almost unanimous awareness. Good job, class, on this Thursday afternoon for recalling that I grew up in Canuso. Thank you very much. It was a municipality. It was a village. Even though our population was smaller, probably Hamlet-warranted population. But after it might have been in high school actually, but after my immediate childhood, we actually dissolved the municipality and became part of an MD of Big Lakes County. And the reason why I talk about this is because one of the things that's happening in this Act is repealing Parts 5, Division 1.1, which refers to codes of conduct for locally elected local governments, specifically municipalities, which includes MDs and counties. And Big Lakes, I think we used to be an MD and now we're a county. I'm going to take the time to read some of their code of conduct into the record, Madam Speaker, because the code of conduct came into place in, I believe it was 2019, bylaw number 7 for Big Lakes, and it flowed from legislation in this place, which the government is proposing to appeal, or repeal rather, through this bill. And at the same time, Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker has deemed the importance of developing a code of conduct for MLAs. And I am keen to see that process through and for us to have the opportunity to discuss ways that we govern ourselves in relation to one another and the work that we do in this place and beyond this chamber's walls. Just as municipalities have done, and I'm going to again go through some of the Big Lakes County, because I do believe that a number of my colleagues, if not already, have discussed Edmonton. I'm sure that they will, because it is currently the law that every municipality sets a code of conduct to govern themselves for the elected officials. So the purpose of the one in Big Lakes is that the code of conduct shall be used to uphold principles governing the conduct of councillors, so councillors maintain the highest standards while faithfully discharging their duties. Laudable purpose. It refers to Part 2 of the MGA, which the government is repealing, passed in 2000, and the bylaws that flow from such are what this code of conduct is referring to. So whereas the citizens and taxpayers of the county have the right to be served by a council committee to conduct itself in an ethical, impartial, businesslike, and professional manner. Why the government would choose to take time, legislative time, to repeal provisions around ensuring ethical, impartial, businesslike, and professional conduct for municipalities at the same time as the government is embroiled in allegations of corruption and cover-ups is an interesting contrast, Madam Speaker. So whereas the Big Lakes County Council deems it necessary to establish a council code of conduct to give members of council reflecting the values of Big Lakes County, its commitment to professional, accountable, and lawful conduct, its desire to provide strong local guidance and leadership. And whereas the council code of conduct is supplemental to the existing federal and provincial statutes laws and provides governing the conduct of municipal elected officials. And again, speaking about the various orders of government, that they are not intending to overthrow any use of provincial legislation, they in fact can't, but that they are executing their responsibility under provincial legislation to develop a code of conduct. So there are many definitions. Council, of course, means the councillors who were duly elected to hold office. Councillor means a member of council, including the reeve or the deputy reeve. It defines property. It defines confidential or confidential information. This is something that I think is important for everyone to be aware of, what is deemed confidential or confidential information. And typically, when it comes to local decision makers, whether it be school boards or whether it be municipalities, it's matters of land, labor, and law, specifically things that it would be illegal to discuss publicly because of, again, documents that govern their behavior, but that it would, the privacy of employees, for example, the labor negotiations, of course, things that were being discussed confidentially. and land, the acquisition or disposition of assets, of course. So makes good sense. The conduct of councillors, so the councillors in the municipality when acting as a councillor shall abide and adhere to the following principles from the Code of Conduct. A, govern individual conduct in accordance with requirements set out in the Municipal Government Act. Again, that is now going to be repealed, which is why these things will be null and void. Always act in the best interests of Big Lakes County. Treat fellow councillors, administration, and the public with respect, concern, and courtesy. Demonstrate the highest standards of professional integrity and honesty in order to foster the public trust and confidence in the municipality. Communicate and work with fellow councillors in an open and honest manner, promoting a spirit of collaboration by listening and respecting those opinions that may differ. Madam Speaker, I feel like this one in particular is something that we can take a moment to reflect on. Why it is we would choose to prioritize repealing things like this, that I will say the councillors, when they brought this in, I think that developing your code of conduct documents is actually one of the best team building exercises you can do for any board or organization or government that you might be a part of. I actually look forward to us doing that as members of this assembly in a collegial way, and I think that there's a lot that we can probably borrow inspiration from the work of local leaders and their communities. Recognizing, on to item F, recognizing when interacting with the public no individual authority exists except where explicit authority by a council resolution, bylaw, or policy. This is a good one because so often it is tempting to say one's opinion or one's interpretation, but this very clearly says unless there was a resolution saying you're speaking with the authority of council, you do not have individual authority to interpret or to provide guidance essentially to folks on behalf of the municipality. Recognizing when interacting with the press, individual councillors do not speak for the municipality except where explicitly authorized by a council resolution, bylaw, and policy. I love this one because so often when I was on the school board, people would say, oh, I can't speak about that. My opinion may differ from the majority. In fact, this empowers elected representatives to speak about their opinions and their individual positions, whether it be on motions that are forthcoming or motions that have passed, rather than always having to feel like they're boxed in by the decision that may have been made by council. I think this one is a crucial piece for any elected individual to recall and to hold true to themselves. And I think it's something that members of this assembly could probably feel empowered by if we upheld a piece like this for ourselves when it comes to enshrining that each one of us as individuals may not have the authority to make a decision, but speaking to our own individual integrity, our own beliefs on things like potential scandals that the government might be in the midst of. Recognizing an individual councillor cannot exercise individual authority over the municipality. Recognizing when interacting with a chief administrative office, the lack of authority vested in a councillor to direct the chief administrative officer except where explicitly authorized by a council resolution, bylaw, or policy. Okay, so this one reminded me of years ago, there was a mayor, I believe it was North Vancouver, who was accused of fixing parking tickets. The accusation came because somebody did bring their parking tickets to this individual, and of course the individual didn't have the power to eliminate anyone's parking tickets, but that mayor at that time was actually a very generous person and just discreetly paid that person's parking ticket. Isn't that interesting? Never talked about it, never said anything, and then an opponent later tried to make it into a big scandal. Some people might think that they have the individual power as a mayor or an individual elected to be able to fix things, but the right thing to do and to lay out in things like a code of conduct document is that one does not have the ability to, and if somebody gives you the impression that they're doing it, I think it's important for people to know that the mayor doesn't have the authority, or, for example, the justice minister, the authority to try to fix a traffic violation that was awarded a former justice minister, not the current. Actually, I can even say names, but I won't. I'll attempt to be.
That was a phone call.
Yeah, a phone call from a former justice minister to a chief of police, trying to direct them to not proceed with a violation, traffic violation. So these types of things, I think, are a good opportunity, especially when at the beginning of an electoral term, which we are about to embark on, there will be fall municipal elections, local elections throughout our province for school boards, MDs, counties, towns, cities, etc., summer villages, to choose local representatives for us to. And I think that the opportunity to review things like a code of conduct, which will become illegal should this bill pass in its current form, does a disservice to the council, because I think it actually gives, it forces an opportunity right now to reflect on what prior councils deemed an appropriate code of conduct, and for incoming councils to have an opportunity to review their legal responsibilities, moral responsibilities, and to, in writing, either confirm or amend the code of conduct. Not to use the position of councillor to benefit oneself or any individual apart from the interests of the municipality, and avoid placing oneself in a position where there may be a real or perceived conflict of interest or apprehension of bias. So, this piece has me thinking very much about photos that surfaced over the last 24 hours of individuals who in employment and elected responsibility are in very close proximity to the Premier, including her former Chief of Staff, Press Secretary, and the now Justice Minister. And there is absolutely a possibility that everyone paid out of their own pocket, that everyone got themselves there on their own, paid for a flight individually. And one of the reasons why I think pieces like this, again, thanks to Big Lakes County for articulating it, is so important, is that not to use one's position to benefit themselves or another individual apart from those who you're there to serve. So I know that a lot of people looked at those pictures with frustration, but also envy. A lot of folks who I have the honor of representing can't imagine being able to afford to buy tickets for themselves or their families to go watch a playoff game, any playoff game, let alone fly to another jurisdiction, watch a playoff game, and when questions are asked about who paid or how one got there, I think falling back on a code of conduct would be an appropriate thing for one to do, to, of course, be clear and honest and transparent about not infringing on the role of that office for personal benefit or perceived benefit. Not to attempt to use a municipality's funds, property, or information for personal benefit of the councillor or any person to gain benefit of any other individual. Devote time, thought, and attention into the duties of council to effectively and knowledgeably execute decisions made on behalf of the citizens and taxpayers. Develop and evaluate goals and policies through council to meet the needs and expectations of the public. Attend ongoing training and foster a better understanding of the councillor's duties and obligations. Again, I think this piece around expectation of continuous professional development is one that is great to have in local elections code of conduct, and probably all. I think I was just chatting actually with a number of Alberta Catholic school trustees at an awareness day that they were hosting here on the legislative grounds, and two of the councillors, Madam Speaker, have been elected for 40, or trustees rather, have been elected for 40 years. 40 years as trustees, and when I talked to them about what inspired them to serve for this long, and they still haven't made up their mind if they're running again or not, they talked about continuous learning and continuous improvement and a desire to serve. So acknowledging in a code of conduct that there is an expectation that no matter whether somebody's in their first year or their 40th year of service to local elected order of government, that they are expected to continue to provide themselves with and benefit from the professional development to grow in their role. Protect,
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Meadows.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's my pleasure to rise to speak to the Bill 50 Municipal Affairs Statutes Amendment Act. The Bill 50 does a lot of things, actually. But it's a big bill. And when I look at the changes, there are a few changes, that required kind of housekeeping items that required to streamline with the updating laws, number of that new wires home, but so many things. When I see the bill try to address the mess-ups and messed-ups in Bill 20 and sweeping changes to a number of other things. That it reminds me, I look back, things go in my mind like movies, like, why we're doing this. I know I was elected to this assembly in 2019 when the first UCP government came in power, and our city governments were represented by relatively very strong progressive governments, and we see, like, in provincial government, that some kind of discontent, like not happy about it, and their intent to influence the politics in their way and the hurdle they were feeling in both, particularly in city of Edmonton and city of Calgary, to making a way of, getting their own people elected. The first thing the UCP government did when they came in power was canceled the city charter. So something that was, serving, that at least the large cities, big city charter was serving very well, where they have, outlined and planned for big projects dealing with provincial government and how to approach in advance for their outlined project funding and number of other steps. The provincial government came in, they canceled the big city charters, and that impacted their major projects in both the cities. In Edmonton, LRT projects, and the city of Calgary was Green Line. So even Green Line has been a big issue. Even when we were discussing the Bill 50, there have been huge, big debate on both sides, how their Green Lines project have been compromised by the constant approach of this provincial government. So, Madam Speaker, I just wanted to say, this is not something we hear from our constituents, but I see like we are trying to, or we are debating in this House and we are discussing this House, but Bill 50 actually brings in. I know the provincial government or the ministry has not actually consulted with the municipal governments, municipal representatives, before bringing this bill in. But more than that, this is not something that I ever heard from people in my constituency that is, really concerning to them. I often hear from people, either a number of people, sometimes they ask me a question and approach me in confusion over the jurisdictional powers. Sometimes I'm in public meetings and public events, they come to me to share their concern regarding the issues without knowing like who this issue directly belongs to, which government is responsible for this. More of this is like their snow cleaning. So they're not happy with what is happening in the city, or they are the sidewalks issues, the number of different issues. Then sometimes I even direct them to the proper place. And when we hear back, it was not long ago when the mayor of city of Edmonton actually took to the media and first actually highlighted the big amount of the property taxes that's supposed to come to the cities were not coming because the provincial government decided not to pay cities taxes on those buildings and infrastructures. And also they highlighted and strongly advocated for the cut they were facing, itemized those cuts up to $70 million to $100 million a year. And that was impacting to Edmontonian services that often people complain about, like they're not receiving service or they are having property taxes increase every single day, and then city government make excuse because of those funding cuts. They have no alternate to generate their revenue, and that's the only avenue they have, and that's what they are doing. And end of the day, these are Albertans who are being burdened and who are under pressure. So those are kind of the challenges. Those are kind of the issues in the constituencies, in the communities that comes to us, and we always try to refer to or direct to the councillor or the city representatives, and that is the city's answer, and cities respond back to not only to individuals and also to general public. So, and the other biggest issue we have discussed so many times, and that's in the media all the time, and the municipalities have spoken on it. The large corporations owe over $250 million in taxes to those municipalities. So for the past 6 years, we have been discussing on both sides of this house and asking for this, how the municipal ministry and this government can help those municipalities collect those taxes so they can serve their constituents. So not even single efforts. I know the ministry on many occasions had shown their serious concerns about those issues, but there's nothing more than just lip service. So 6 years is not a short period of time. The cities are asking those kind of issues, even to Bill 50, even previously on Bill 20 that government rushed into with missing a lot of steps. The municipal leadership actually shown their opposition to these efforts and clearly stated what their actually issues are, what their demands are, what their hurdles are, what they're expecting from the provincial government in response to help them govern in a way they can, build a better community. In my riding, the south, east in Edmonton, all the schools right now are running a lottery system. That is daily complaints, regardless of this issue is related to school boards or the local governments. People just want to see where they can go and tell their, pain and their problem. So my office is in the community and easy access to the public, and those complaints are on a daily basis. So that's what we need to hear. Like when we go to city says a lack of funding from the provincial government. And when we go to the Edmonton School Board, they honestly say, that our priorities are never addressed when we submit it to the government of Alberta. We have a funding priority list, so we are always short of that list. We do not have enough schools. We do not have enough funds to increase teachers in school. We do not have enough funds to hire more staff. And right now, Alberta have one teacher per 48 students. The less per capita funding. In school, just even 2 blocks from my own home, are running a capacity where classes are being held in libraries and the other places that are not, for classes to be held. So those are the issues when this bill is making a sweeping changes. Also, we have seen in this Bill 20 when government misses the important stuff like they were, specific to like the blind voters. They did not have any streamlined instructions and proper act or guideline for them. No, they're trying to fix in this bill. And similarly, we are, facing fall election within 6 months. The Alberta municipalities are going to go in elections. And how this government thinks that it's okay to go in election without having any kind of code and conduct that addresses a lot of issues similar to what we go through in during provincial elections. So number of challenges. So government is removing the code of conduct without having anything ready to replace it. Can it be called a wise change? No, it's not at all. Specifically, when we see there are already challenges, like there are candidates, like they were accused. They were accused of doing something that was very unethical, and they are announcing their bid for city elections already, and they are announcing their bid for city mayor election, for the mayoral candidacy, and they're forming parties. It seems like government actually, instead of strengthening the municipalities with the code of conducts and the other guidelines and putting them in trouble at a very sensitive time, or trying to help someone when we see the government is bringing change in the distribution of donation funding to candidates. So they're trying to create the parallel that is not really fair to independent candidates at all. Now, the candidates who are part of the newly formed political parties, because that was not the practice in Alberta municipal elections. That is just the actually drill started by this UCP government. They started in 2019 when they first time came in power to run political parties in municipal elections because they probably wanted to get their narrow-minded agenda pushed through that way that they have been trying for successive years and not really successful. Now, it seems they can have their favorite parties probably unfairly fund their political candidates on those slates, political party slates, and that is not really fair. They can get direct donations from the public, and they can also, if they don't feel. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Deputy, the Honourable Deputy, I pick one. The Honourable Member for Edmonton Manning.
I thought I would just stand up. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and it's a pleasure to rise and speak to Bill 50 and, you know, work towards everybody getting out of here towards Easter, and hopefully everybody has a great long weekend and safe drives home and beautiful weather and all of those great things. And so I really just wanted to quickly chat a bit about some of the changes that I see that the government has decided to move forward on in relation to the home buyers program or home warranty program. And the reason that I wanted to speak a bit about it is that I'm a little concerned just around the notification to the purchaser. I see that the government is going to be looking at providing an exemption to small builders, and that the regulator or the registrar will have to flag it on the land title that an exemption is going to be provided, so that when the home is purchased, that it's registered and the purchaser is aware of that. I guess I feel like this is a little bit backwards in the sense of ensuring consumer protection for Albertans. And the reason that I say that is that I want to make sure that if these exemptions are being granted, that the purchaser is notified in a timely and fair manner, so that they don't make an offer on a brand new home assuming that there's a home warranty program, end up going through the offer, end up sitting down with their lawyer, having a conversation, and all of a sudden they go to pull the land title, which, as we know, are a little bit delayed and aren't as timely as we would like them to be, only for the purchaser of this home to then find out that there's no home warranty. And now they've spent legal fees, and now they've put an offer in on a property with this assumption. And I think there's an easy fix to it. I think that if the government is going to say we're going to provide an exemption, then the government should also be ensuring that as part of that exemption, there is a notification at the advertisement of sale that this property does not have a home warranty program attached to it. So no different than this is a 3-bedroom house with 2 baths and a walk-in closet. It also says, and no home warranty. So that those who are looking at purchasing have the facts. Because if it's going to be legislated, then we should be legislating some form of consumer protection, I believe, given the fact that we know that this is the most expensive investment that Albertans make in their lifetime, right? We all know that. It is the asset that people use to carry themselves into retirement. It is for many people, it is their financial security. And things happen. You know, I don't think this is about saying that home builders are not building quality homes. But I do think that, you know, leaks can occur, windows may not be sealed, all of those things. And that the purchaser of that property should be aware that they are taking on a little bit of a financial risk when they purchase a brand new home that may not have the warranty attached to it that they assume is existing. Because it doesn't sound, and I haven't heard anything from the government side at this point to say that they're going to be doing any type of education, any work with any of our associations, like the Realtors Association or our Home Builders Associations, or any of that, to ensure that we're informing consumers that there is a risk attached to this. And so I would like to hear from the government around how they're going to ensure that Albertans are aware of this risk and how they're going to protect Albertans from a potential financial risk. I think given how our housing market has continued to expand and the cost of housing has continued to increase, any opportunity that the government has to ensure that investments, that Albertans' investments into their housing is as seamless as possible and is protected as much as it possibly can, I think would be in the government's best interest, especially when they have a responsibility to that financial protection for Albertans. And I am also kind of curious about the consultation that happened around this and how we got here. I think that if you talk to Albertans that are buying in these newer neighborhoods, that are maybe working with different developers and have had experience with the home buyers program, strengthening the home buyers program might be a better solution to the problem than maybe providing exemption. I think that, I mean, all you have to do is go onto some of these chat spaces, Reddit, or any of these kind of stuff where people are having dialogues with each other in the home buyers program. The home warranties program is a topic of conversation that many people are having about how difficult it is to actually be able to access their warranty once they've purchased their home. And so I guess I would have liked to have seen that if the government wants to open up this section and provide an exemption for small, one-off, whatever, individuals, that maybe it would have been a great opportunity to also say, let's reevaluate the program and see if it's actually even working for Albertans. And are there things that we can be doing to strengthen the program instead of trying to decrease the program? As my colleague said from Edmonton Gold Bar, it was something that we took very seriously when we were in government, and it was 7 years when we were in government, is what the program was valued at. So you had 7 years from the time that you purchased your home, depending on what you were managing on that program, and it's been now decreased to 5 under the current government. And so it seems to me that it's an erosion of the program.
The clock strikes 4:30. That means the House is adjourned until April 28th at 1:30 p.m. Have a very wonderful Good Friday Easter weekend.